Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Sleepless Cinematic Podcast, where we explore our shared love for watching and discussing movies, recorded in the late after-work hours, often in lieu of a good night's rest. I'm Emilio.
I'm Julian.
And I'm Madeline. The three of us are colleagues at a Midtown Manhattan music school. Yes, music is what brings us together, but movies are what keep us together talking at the end of the night. So we've created some order to this ongoing trend by recording these conversations, considering an overarching theme while we cycle through 5 unique guidelines for engagement.
You can email us at sleeplesscinematicpod@gmail.com. Seriously, we'd love to hear from you. You can also follow us on Instagram and TikTok for updates, highlights, clips, and other visual supplements to the audio we record at Sleepless Cinematic Pod.
In addition to these main episodes, we record and release bonus one-off episodes as we see fit. While we do this, you, the listener, can count on the three of us doing what we've grown to love, foregoing sleep for a discussion about movies every other week.
And this week, we wrap up our current episode cycle with a category that we call Close Up. We've been discussing movies featuring performances that have earned Best Supporting Acting Oscars. But none of the films we've talked about so far, I think, would be considered a quote-unquote comedy. So we'll take this as an opportunity to dive into 3 comedies, their award-winning performances, and perhaps along the way, see what some of these performances might have in common.
And those specific films and performances are, first, the earliest film of the bunch, A Fish Called Wanda, released in 1988, for which Kevin Kline won the Best Supporting Actor Oscar for his performance, followed by City Slickers, released in 1991, where Jack Palance won Best Supporting Actor as well. And we'll finish off this trio with 1992's My Cousin Vinny, for which Marisa Tomei won the Best Supporting Actress Oscar.
Woo.
Yes, very excited. And this week, we're delighted to invite on a guest with an acting resume as impressive as anyone working in theater today. In 2013, he earned rave reviews and his first Tony nomination, portraying the titular comic titan in Chaplin on Broadway. Personally, I know him best when he took the baton from Brian Darcy James and played Nick Bottom in Something Rotten on Broadway. I've said it before on this podcast, and I'll say it again. I love that show, and I absolutely loved him in that role as well. He's also played leads in Broadway and regional productions of Honeymoon in Vegas, Shrek, Noises Off, Hello Dolly, Mary Poppins, Beauty and the Beast, just to name a few. Our guest has recently played Seymour in the off-Broadway revival of Little Shop of Horrors. He's originated the role of newly deceased Adam in Broadway's recent hit Beetlejuice. And in 2021, he earned his second Tony nomination playing Daniel Hillard, the titular cross-dressing nanny in Mrs. Doubtfire on Broadway. He just wrapped Doubtfire's national tour, acting alongside his wife, Maggie Lakis, a super talent of a performer in her own right. As you can see, he knows a thing or two about acting and comedy, as well as the acclaim that one can receive when you're really good at combining the two. I can't wait to get into what that experience is going to bring to this conversation. Rob McClure, welcome to the Sleepless Cinematic Podcast.
I don't think you understand how excited I am about this. I don't think. A, to talk to you all about movies, and B, to talk about, like, hey, do comedies warrant as much awards as they should? Yeah. And why, if not, why not? Why? This is a deep dive, y'all. You've opened a can of worms by inviting me. I'm so excited.
Well, that's so cool. I want to ask you just a real quick thing, just right off the top. I know that you guys recently wrapped the Doubtfire tour at the end of 2024. We're talking it's early February. I'm really curious what you do to recover from that grind, because it is a grind.
Yeah, it's a completely different life the instant you get home. And it's what's so funny is I had done, over 500 performances of that show, and I think I missed 6. I think I missed 6 performances over the almost 6 years on and off between pandemics and all that other stuff that I had been doing it. And your body just figures it out, And I got home and I got strep throat, COVID, and then strep throat again
Oh my
in like
God.
2 months. But it was like my body knew.
Yeah.
You know, it's like my body was just like, go, crash,
has
give him
permission.
everything. Give him everything we got. Because it was, and I got home and I was like, okay, I need to vastly change my diet, because on the road, you're eating a little bit of, each cuisine in each city and each, want to find, but you
Right.
have the show to work it off.
Yeah.
So I'm
Right.
like, if I get home and keep eating the way I've been eating without doing Mrs. Doubtfire 8 times a week, I'm gonna explode. It's like, so yeah, there is a huge lifestyle change. And my 6-year-old daughter, who just finished the tour, she came along with us, just started kindergarten.
Oh, that's so cool.
Life is very, very different. But I wouldn't trade it at all. These downtimes become sacred when you're busy.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to jump into this a little bit. I've often heard from actors who play villains that they often prepare by removing the villain label, and they try to see them as just people who happen to be doing immoral things. And I'm curious, when approaching a comedic role, how much do you think about being funny or coming off as funny versus finding the character and leaning on situations and dialogue to bring out the humor?
I love this question. I think I don't think I ever worry about being funny, ever. It's like you play the truth, and then if the truth is funny, they'll laugh. Comedy and musical theater have something in common. They both it drives me crazy. There are two phrases: over the top and larger than life. They drive me crazy because they somehow insinuate that you're doing something false. You're doing something that's not a normal behavior. But for me, the comedy is all circumstantial. I worked with this really great director once, a guy named Aaron Posner, and he used a term that I love called actually. And that
Okay.
just meant playing what is actually happening. So when I was doing Honeymoon in Vegas, for instance, I had to pretend that I was stuck on an airplane with a bunch of Elvis impersonators who are also skydivers. And I need to, and in order to stop the love of my life from marrying someone else, I need to jump.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it turns out if you just play what you would actually do,
Oh, I got you.
if you were confronted by 30 flying Elvises telling you the only way down is to jump, turns out if you just play what you would actually do, it's pretty damn funny.
Yeah.
It's like the truth is the funniest option, and a lot of times the stakes and the circumstance are what make it hysterical.
Very cool. I like that.
Yeah, that's making me think of, we'll get deeper into it as we get deeper into this discussion, but that's something that, I was watching the commentary for A Fish Called Wanda, something that John Cleese said about the way that he liked to set up humor in that movie and in other situations, which was to take pretty ordinary, straight-laced people and put them in circumstances where they're kind of at their wits' end.
Yeah, you definitely see that in that film in particular.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
And it came up in the commentary during the scene when Wanda and Otto have broken into his house, and there's all those gags where he thinks they'll be behind a door and it's someone else.
That's we're gonna get into that. That's one of my favorite parts for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but I think that totally speaks to what you were saying, Rob, about actually.
Yeah.
What
Absolutely.
that balance between what is grounded and what is extraordinary.
Yes, and even if you look at things that are ridiculous, right? We look at Ace Ventura, or you look at something and you go, well, surely Jim Carrey is trying to be funny. But in that circumstance, the character is the extraordinary circumstance. It's everyone else in that movie who is not a bizarro responding to the bizarro truthfully, that makes him so outrageous and so funny. If the entire movie lived in the same world as that character, it wouldn't be funny. It would be trying way too hard. But it's the muggles, in quotes, responding to him doing such extraordinary nonsense that allows us to share in the humor, right? It's somebody's got to have their feet on the ground or it doesn't work.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, Rob, you've been recognized at the theater's highest levels of honor for your portrayal of iconic comedic personalities. So, would you be able to share your favorite compliment that you've received for a comedic role you've performed and why that was so meaningful to you?
Oh my gosh. So playing Chaplin changed my life. I have one tattoo on my body, and it's a little hat and mustache on my wrist. because I say that doing that show changed my DNA. I got to work with this clown from Pittsburgh named Dan Kamen, who was Robert Downey Jr.'s coach on the film. He's written 6 books on Chaplin,
Wow.
knows everything about comedy and cinema and the birth of cinema through Charlie Chaplin's comedy. And getting to work with him changed my life. And I remember we were filming at the end of that show. I, as Chaplin, as an elderly man, the end of the show, I would sort of walk into a movie screen at the end, and you'd see the little tramp character. I would turn into the little tramp character and sort of walk off into the sunset. And Chaplin's family came on opening night. Some of his children, some of his grandchildren. And on Monday, they came on a Friday, and on Monday, I got an email from the composer that said, "Hey, I just thought you'd want to see this." And it was an email from Chaplin's granddaughter saying, "Hey, we've been trying all weekend to find that clip of the little tramp walking off into the sunset that you guys use at the end of the show. What is it from?" And it was me. We filmed it on a field in La Jolla when we were out there doing the out-of-town tryout. And it was me. And the notion that they, even for a moment, might have mistaken me for Chaplin blew the back of my head off. But we can get into this more in depth if you want, because I think Chaplin really does have origins for a lot of the comedy that we see in all 3 of these films.
Definitely.
You realize how much is derivative of stuff that he was doing way back then, but not just in the comedy or in the bits, but in the stakes and in the underlying need of all these characters that fuels the comedy, because they all have that in common.
Definitely.
I can't wait to get into that. That's awesome.
Yeah, and something like a fact about film comedy that I feel like I've been I've considered a lot recently in the build up to this conversation, but just independently of that too, is that I feel like where like some modern forms of comedy can be like more catered to niche audiences, or it like lands for some people, doesn't land for everyone, that like silent film comedy is almost universally effective, whether it be Charlie Chaplin or Harold Lloyd or Buster Keaton, of course, that like a lot of it's slapstick, a lot of it's physical, but there is a style of comedy there that I think, it has to work because there's no sound. And like, I think that you can watch it today the same way you could 100 years ago and it's still as funny.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I didn't realize how much every single move Chaplin was doing was based in storytelling. There was a time I was working on the long story short, I was trying to master the tramp shuffle, as we called it, the Charlie Chaplin little walk, spinning his cane and walked kind of like a duck. And Dan came in, the coach said, "Hey, we need to get you the clothes. So here, put on these pants. They're 10 sizes too big. Put on these shoes. They're 5 sizes too big. Here, put on this jacket. The jacket's too small. Put on this hat. It's too small. So if you don't stand up straight, it'll fall off." And I realized that I was doing the tramp shuffle out of need. If I didn't turn my feet out, I would walk right out of the shoes. So immediately the turnout is essential. The turnout is out of a need to not walk out of the shoes. If I walked normally, I would step on the hem. So I had to sort of like foof the hem of the pants, which was too big in front of me. And all of a sudden I was finding that the tramp shuffle was happening to me because of the clothes.
That's amazing.
But then I was watching one of his films and he did this little shoulder pop, this little shoulder shrug. And I was like, "Oh, that's cute." So the next day in rehearsal, I add the little shoulder shrug and Dan goes, "What is that?" And I said, "What's the little shoulder shrug? It's like a cute little variation." He said, "That's not how this works." When you don't have words, your shoulder shrugging is a verb. What verb are you playing? And I was like, "Oh man." So he said, "Go back and watch more of his movies, find 5 times that he does a shoulder shrug, and you'll start to realize, you'll start to conjugate the verb." He said.
He's like, there are levels to this man.
Yes, exactly. And so I go and I'm watching, and sure as anything, he had always been either disappointed by like a woman or a job opportunity. And as he was going to turn away, it was almost like a boxer shaking it off between rounds. It was like and you go like, "Oh my God, of course, if you don't have words, every one of those little things needs to have story underneath it."
Yeah.
And then lastly, he said, "The most important question I can ask you is, why don't the clothes fit?" I said, "Well, it makes for a really funny silhouette." He said, "No, why doesn't this man have clothes that fit him, this character?" "Because he's a nobody. He picked them out of a trash can. They're not his clothes."
Yeah.
So the tip of the hat or the shrug or the wiggle of the mustache is in a desperate attempt to convince people that he's somebody more important than he is. Maybe he's a duke, maybe he's a doctor, maybe it was all overcompensation. And that's when you start to go, oh, that's why this man had the largest cinematic appeal, the biggest worldwide appeal of anyone in history up until that moment, because of what was going on underneath the comedy. And when you look, and we'll get into this, when you look into Vincent Gambini, and you look into, these people who in these moments, a lot of the comedy is out of desperation. And that's a huge thread that Chaplin really started for me.
Wow, incredible. Thank you.
Yeah. Great. That's so cool.
I just have to say too that you said something earlier about I think a praise, blowing the back of your head off. And immediately when you said that, I just pictured Charlie Chaplin's top hat flying off his head.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then him just looking around all frazzled by it. But to go back further to how the tastes around comedy, or people's tastes in general, have changed around comedy over time. I mean, part of why we grouped these three movies together is that they're released very close in time. And of course, they're awarded accordingly. And it's over a span, in terms of the release of the movies, it's, they're within just 4 years of each other. And it appears from a bird's eye view that this was kind of like a prime time at the Oscars for awarding comic performances, and that it's not, I would argue that it's not like there's been zero attention to comic performances since then, but the decoration of them has certainly waned.
Yeah.
And so looking beyond the period when these movies won their awards, we'll put the question to you first, Rob, but I'd be interested to hear everyone's thoughts. What reasons would we ascribe to why there haven't been as many Oscars awarded to comic performances since then? Has it the tastes of the Academy, or the movies people are watching, or both? What do we think?
What's so funny? What's so funny to me is I don't quite understand why movies are being categorized in the way they are now.
Yeah.
Because if you go back and you watch City Slickers, or you watch My Cousin Vinny, sure, they're comedies because you find yourself laughing a lot through them. But if you go and you watch, any of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Chris Pratt has as many punchlines in those movies as anybody does in City Slickers. There are the comic characters who keep us laughing, and yet we don't call those movies comedies just because of the nature of their plots. But I would almost argue that we need to sort of eliminate the categories altogether and make a story, because a lot of them are as my wife would call them, Trojan horses.
Yeah.
They're movies that you think are about one thing, but they're actually about something else.
Yeah.
And a lot of the comedies we're discussing today, I would argue, are conventionally dramas disguised as comedies.
Mhm.
Sure.
And so I hope that sort of conventional comedy can sort of get looped into the larger picture sooner than later, just because a lot of times they have just as much, if not more, to offer.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Yeah, I totally see where you're coming from there.
One of the things that I noticed, and this might come up a little bit more as we continue speaking, but these three movies, Fish Called Wanda, City Slickers, and My Cousin Vinny, they were all very successful at the box office.
Yeah.
They all did well. And I think that that's something that has kind of woven in and out of awards recognition, is the populist vote for what is fun and exciting. Is that actually going to take home a trophy or not?
Yeah.
And I think that the late 80s and early 90s was kind of a prime time for the kind of commercial aspect of film to bleed over into the awards arena.
I think that's a very good point. Because if you look at a comedy more recently that got a lot of recognition was Barbie.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody, I think, was really impressed with Ryan Gosling's performance in particular, and it got a lot of buzz, even though it didn't win. And that is an extremely highly grossing movie. So I think you make a very interesting correlation between box office success and then the likelihood that these performances are going to be recognized in a genuine way.
Yeah. And I think it's something that I don't know if the voters are conscious of this or not, but I do think it's something that feels like it can come and go with the time a little bit. And so I think there was just kind of this sweet spot. Julian, you were speaking a little bit to this before, just from a bird's eye view. I was looking around a little bit too, and you see nominations for certain performances that are, I think, very comedic at heart, but you rarely see them win. And and I think that there is just this kind of thing where we sometimes don't know exactly what movies and important movies are supposed to look like all the time. That's something that can change with the time.
Yeah, I think what everyone said is very well said so far. And I think that a trend that emerges in the 90s with the Oscars specifically that also kind of shapes this is that and I have to give credit here to a book that I read very publicly on the podcast a while ago, Michael Schulman's Oscar Wars, that is the last of these wins, Marisa Tomei and My Cousin Vinny, happens 1 year before the competition for Best Picture between The Piano and Schindler's List, which, if you know the history of those awards campaigns, so Schindler's List, of course, Spielberg, that's his movie. He's campaigning for that. The Piano was campaigned for, it was directed by Jane Campion, but it was produced by someone who I think that you can probably tell who I'm building up to by my hesitation.
Your hesitation.
Yeah. Someone you can blame for a lot of problems in recent film history. Harvey Weinstein, of course, sadly. But he, began a trend of ferocious campaigning for, the movies that he was really promoting were indie films at that time. And so that's when you see the so-called rise of the indies in the years following. And, there's a lot more emphasis on purely dramatic kind of prestige drama sort of things at the Oscars. I would actually argue that later in the 90s, there is one acting win that is for, a very funny performance, even if you'd call the movie more dramatic, which is Frances McDormand in Fargo.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that's one case where, something that he was not attached to did get, I think, a very deserving win.
I think that's a movie that speaks so well to Rob's point.
Yeah.
That it's like, well, what is Fargo? Is Fargo a comedy?
Totally.
Is Fargo a drama? Fargo's hilarious.
Yeah.
So if you're just judging it based on how much I'm laughing, it's a comedy.
Totally.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's also harrowing.
Yeah,
there's really horrible stuff that happens in that movie.
Yeah. It's
yes.
Yeah. And then looking more towards the present, I mean, I don't think that the Academy has lost its eye for comedy due to not only some nominations, but some wins in the last few years. I'm thinking in particular of all the acting wins that occurred for Everything Everywhere All at Once.
That's another movie though that's like I don't know if I had to classify that movie.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'd classify it as a comedy.
Exactly.
It's more of like a sci-fi film.
It's sci-fi, it's martial arts. I would certainly call it a comedy among other things, but not only that.
Yeah. But yes, the roles are very comedic. I think Jamie Lee Curtis in particular. It's I think that's such an interesting performance for her because it's funny, but it's not. I don't know. I feel like I can't put it to words.
It's pretty self-reflexive.
Exactly.
Like I remember when I was watching it, there's literally a moment where she becomes Michael Myers.
Yeah, it's campy.
It is campy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that the woman from Fish Called Wanda grew up to be that character.
No, yeah, you're right about that.
But I think, like, back to one of your earlier points, Rob, that in that performance too is embedded a sense of Jamie Lee Curtis's truth as well. That, I think that role, Deirdre Beaudeirdre, as the character is named, would not hit as hard if it didn't have that kind of sadness within it.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, so I was lucky enough to work with Jerry Zaks on Mrs. Doubtfire. And Jerry Zaks is legendary multi-Tony Award-winning director. He's directed episodes of Everybody Loves Raymond. He's the guy who you go to for comedy. He directed the original Lend Me a Tenor. He directed A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum with Nathan Lane.
Classic.
I mean, this guy knows comedy.
Yeah.
And one of the things he said to me that really rocked me was that the sound of an audience laughing is the sound of an audience falling in love.
Oh.
And if you can make an audience laugh, then you've gotten in their heart and you've cracked open their rib cage. So by act 2, when tragedy befalls that character, they care deeply because that character has made them laugh.
Right.
That, to me, it sums up everything we're talking about and why these characters who can be somewhat melancholy a lot of the time, particularly if we look at City Slickers.
Yeah.
All of them have moments where we go, oh, under all of this bravado is somebody really going through it.
Yeah.
And you could say that almost about every principal character in City Slickers.
Yeah.
But because they make us laugh, we care so deeply for them.
I love that.
That's very well said.
I'm wondering if we can use that as a springboard. I would argue that of the three characters that we're going to be focusing on, the one that maybe strains...
Please say it. Please say it. Please say it.
The one that strains credibility as a likable or lovable person, maybe the one that we're going to talk about first. But I'm open to having my mind changed about this.
Yeah. Well, I see where you're coming from there, though. Emilio.
Totally.
So, that I think is as good a transition as any to start talking about our first movie, A Fish Called Wanda.
Yeah.
Which, before we get too deep into it, we should clarify this is not to be confused with other films such as The Fisher King.
Oh,
yeah.
Which, came out just a few years later than A Fish Called Wanda, also featured an Oscar-winning supporting performance from Mercedes Ruehl, and is helmed by an alumnus of Monty Python, Terry Gilliam in that case, as opposed to John Cleese for A Fish Called Wanda. But yes, not to be confused with.
This film, A Fish Called Wanda, should also not be confused with A Man Called Otto, although there is a man called Otto in A Fish Called Wanda.
Well done. Wow.
So 2022 film starring Tom Hanks, based on an international film.
Yeah.
I think.
A Man Called Uwe.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think that's how you say it.
Thank you, Julian.
Yeah. Swedish film, I believe.
Yeah.
It's also
grade A work right there, Madeline.
Yeah, that was really, I've never felt more like I'm supposed to be where I am than here listening to you two do those two.
Thank you.
I don't know if this is going to land quite the same, but A Fish Called Wanda should also not be confused with The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh. Are you familiar with this movie?
Not at all.
Pennsylvania native Rob?
Yes.
You are? Okay, good. Yes, it's a film from 1979. It's about a fictional basketball team who, mired in dysfunction, heeds the suggestions of an astrologer and revamps their team to consist of players only born in the same zodiac sign of their star player, which is a Pisces. Hence, the fish of the title. Yes, I actually...
Another huge Oscar winner, that movie. That's a joke. That's a joke.
Yes, that's true. Yes, we do not want to confuse that movie. It stars, Pennsylvania, Philadelphia legend Julius Erving and a bunch of other famous basketball players from the late 70s and early 80s. A hoop head like me always loves to see a movie like that, but do not confuse it with A Fish Called Wanda.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and are we ready to get into the movie?
Oh, let's
Should we do more?
Not to be confused with the popular villain from Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, Piston Honda.
Oh, wow.
Just throwing that out there.
No.
Good rhyme.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm really glad you brought that to the table.
I always like an unexpected rhyme.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So to get into this movie, I mean, in some ways, I feel like, the plot of this movie is fairly straightforward. The execution of it is much more complex. But to give you a sense of just what is going on in this film, it's the 1980s, and we're in London, and a band of jewel thieves led by the fearsome George Thomason and comprising American accomplices Wanda Gershwitz and Otto West and fellow Englishman Ken Pyle steal a highly valuable haul of diamonds, seemingly successfully. Shortly after this heist, Otto and Wanda, lovers who have been pretending to be siblings, double-cross their boss and have him arrested, but while expecting to find the diamonds themselves, they find their safe deposit box mysteriously empty. By a series of events, they determine that George has covertly handed the key to said box over to Ken, and one day at Ken's flat, Wanda sneakily steals the key and hides it in a locket. In their ongoing effort to recover the diamonds, Wanda cozies up to barrister Archie Leach, who happens to be defending her imprisoned boss/supposed lover. In the process of attempting to extract information on the diamonds from Leach, Wanda begins a romance of sorts with him, arousing the jealousy of Otto. As all this happens, Ken aims to eliminate the prime witness of their heist by way of her canine friends. But as one thing leads to another, Archie and Wanda become more entangled, Otto's jealousy intensifies, and more details emerge about just where these diamonds might be located.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Can I just say really quick? So I might jump in a little bit to the personal history bit of this, but a week ago, Elizabeth, my wife, and I purchased a dog.
Yes.
And do you know what this dog's name was?
Oh my
You've
God.
already
Oh my
told
God.
me, so.
Wanda.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's not what you kept, right?
No. Her name is Eleanor.
Got it.
Yeah, but
not to be confused with a bitch called.
this is very true. Yes, thank you. So there's a little bit of kismet going on there, I would say. But
Nice.
Yeah, one thing I'll say is when we talked about bringing up this movie, I completely forgot about how important this movie is to me, honestly. So my next door neighbors growing up, I've mentioned them a time or two on this podcast. They're Dean Miller and Martha Swift. They were intellectuals, so to speak, but they were super formative people for me when it came to my interests in the arts and developing a sense of humor as a young person. And for my birthday one year, we had just bought a DVD player, and I think I was 14, but they bought me the DVD of A Fish Called Wanda. I had seen Monty Python and the Holy Grail before, and I'd watched some Fawlty Towers with them, so I kind of knew who John Cleese was. But honestly, this is like my first meaningful introduction to pretty much all of the principles in this movie. I watched this movie so much with my sister. North of 15 or 20 times. There was a stretch where I knew chunks of this movie by heart. I might interject randomly with quotes that I
Please do.
but I love the mix of absurdity and groundedness in this movie. It's just it strikes this incredible balance. We've already mentioned that scene where Archie and Wanda in Archie's home where Wanda's hiding and he's trying to keep the affair under wraps. It's all-time great comedy. And the ending at the airport is also super high for me as well. So We'll get into this. I think Kevin Kline is an absolute genius in this movie, the perfect chaos agent. And so I have really great memories of this movie, and I loved getting to revisit it. But how about you guys?
Well, so I had seen pieces of this movie before this conversation, but this really was my first full viewing of it for this conversation.
Same for me.
Yeah, and I think the reason maybe it's true for you too, Rob, is that it was a channel surfing movie for me. It was something that I had seen on TV a few times, I believe, quite appropriately on BBC America growing up.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, and so I may not have quite the history with this movie that you do, Emilio, but I do have that kind of history with Monty Python in general. Most prominently with their TV series, Monty Python's Flying Circus. But as a kid, I did see all of the movies, Holy Grail, Life of Brian, and The Meaning of Life. I saw all of that stuff by age 11. Yeah.
We've discussed this before.
Yes.
You were introduced early.
I was introduced early. I honestly my kick was around age 11. That was when I became obsessed. But I have some very early memories of being in the room, the TV room at my grandparents' house, and them watching Monty Python. I had to have been between 3 and 5 years old. It's
Wow.
I remembered some clips from that early on, and it's not just my good memory that's doing that. I think it's the power of the series that did that to me. But so yeah, I mean, I do have maybe quotes from their other works that I can dispense, kind of like Emilio, you can with A Fish Called Wanda. That's why I just on a moment's notice I can be like, well, I'm afraid we don't get much call for it around these parts.
There we go.
Or things like that. This parrot is no more. It's an easy one for them, but still, I had to do it.
Doing a very good job of not being seen.
Yeah, and because this is going to be audio, we can see each other, but this is going to be audio for the listeners. So how very appropriate.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
But yeah, and so then, I mean, what's kind of struck me, and we'll get a little deeper into this as we go further on, but looking at A Fish Called Wanda as compared to Monty Python in their movies and the TV series, is that all of their works are very absurd. Monty Python's works are very absurd, and that we shouldn't consider A Fish Called Wanda to be officially part of the proper Monty Python canon, because it does have two notable presences from the troupe, John Cleese and Michael Palin, but it's not all of them. So it's it's without a doubt
Monty
connected.
Python adjacent.
It's
right?
adjacent, yes.
Yeah.
I think it's part of it's a crucial part of the individual legacies of those two performers, but you still have to consider it by different terms. But Madeline, how about you?
So I'm definitely the odd one out here. I mean, I had never seen this movie. I had never seen any part of this movie. And I actually have not had a whole lot of exposure to Monty Python. I'm not really sure how that happened. I've seen Holy Grail. I think that's it. Like, I really have pretty limited Monty Python experience. So I was able to go into this movie like I would go into pretty much any other movie that I haven't seen before with like, yeah, I'm familiar with some of these actors. I've seen them in other things, but I don't have that like strong emotional connection with these actors or with like this kind of style of comedy, which I think we'll get into like, what does that mean? Like, it's not necessarily like going for a specific style, but I still like, I went in pretty much totally blind to this movie.
Yeah. How about you, Rob?
I loved Monty Python growing up. I wouldn't say I was obsessed with it. I was obsessed with the Muppets.
Yeah.
But Monty Python was never far behind the Muppets. So I definitely watched a lot of them. I wasn't somebody who could rattle off quotes though. And then I got to do Spamalot about a year and a half ago.
Oh, wow.
Very cool.
And then I did a deep dive. Then I really went in hard and had a blast doing so. And then I got to, I was really, really excited. I got to help John Cleese develop his new Life of Brian stage play.
Very cool.
Wow.
So we were in the room with John Cleese, sort of diving into Life of Brian and deconstructing it for the stage and getting to talk to him, getting to know him, getting to hear his sort of point of view on comedy and that piece and his point of view on the state of the theater and the state of comedy. And all of that very much affected my viewing of Fish Called Wanda, which I did as a double header with City Slickers last night.
Cool.
But it was amazing. I watched Fish Called Wanda, and holding it up right beside City Slickers, I found myself laughing, but not being as emotionally invested as I was in City Slickers.
Yeah.
And yet, the second it said in the credits, written by John Cleese, all of my filtering of the movie suddenly went through the lens of that reading I did with him.
Wow. Okay.
And his point of view on the world. And I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since I watched it last night. And we can get into why. But I think it's a far bigger social commentary than I realized while I was watching it. And it was kind of astonishingly relevant the more I thought about it last night.
I had a little bit of that happen to me too this time. I think just watching the film, knowing that I was going to have to get on a mic and talk about it, I think I got some stuff that I never really got before.
Yeah, I mean, it's already established that we have some big Monty Python fans here. And, you know, whatever your familiarity with that group, I have to say I was impressed by how A Fish Called Wanda managed to blend some moments that really feel in character for that group with a sense of absurdity with a more classic style of film comedy. And for reference, John Cleese wrote A Fish Called Wanda, but the film's director, Charles Crichton, it was much older at the time. I think he was 77 when they made the movie. And he was a veteran of the Ealing Studios system, which produced a really fantastic series of post-war comedies in England, post-World War II. And in my experience, like Monty Python often gets labeled as like a specifically British type of humor with kind of a niche appeal, at least today. Whereas A Fish Called Wanda, we've already said it, that it was it was a huge success, both critically and at the box office. And it's got this very self-aware blend of British and American sensibilities. And so my question to the whole group is, what did you personally make of the film's chosen forms of humor? Did it strike you as like timeless, or was it a little more like culturally or time specific? Were certain gags affecting for you while others weren't?
For me, a lot of it, the stuff that felt sort of Python. For me, the person who had me laughing out loud the most was Michael Palin.
Yeah.
The bit with him trying to get rid of the dogs and the old lady is the gift that keeps on giving. It's so funny. And then a lot of the like Chaplin-y, to get back to our earlier conversation stuff that Michael Palin is doing with like crying because he killed the dog and going to wipe away his tears, but he can't because he has an eye patch on, going to snipe one of the dogs. but he can't use the normal eye he would snipe it with because he has the patch on it. Like these recurring bits. So the growth of that bit was the gift that keeps on giving. So, and for instance, like John Cleese trying to get the name of the airport out of him in that final sequence. That to me feels very Monty Python. And I flashed to the reading that I was doing with John Cleese, and I was playing all of John Cleese's characters in The Life of Brian reading that we did.
Ooh.
And I remember we were playing the two guards and doing the bit where it was, I bet I could guess your astrological sign. And then it was like, Gemini? And here we go. No. Aquarius? No. and John Cleese would turn to me and say, "You're not waiting long enough."
Yeah.
Like it should be by the time we get to the 11th. Oh my God, it should be brutal. And it's that, now we associate that with Family Guy, right? It's like a joke that's funny. And then we double down on the joke to the point where it's not funny anymore. But if you keep going, eventually it will get funny again.
Yeah.
There's lots of that formula to be found here. And for me, that's the comedy in the movie that worked the most.
I'm so glad you brought up the Chaplin thing. I was thinking about that too. Like Michael Palin, he's a clown in this. I say that complimentary. Like
very much
he is doing classic clowning.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Definitely.
And it's worth saying, too, that since we're talking about awarded performances here, that Kevin Kline may have won the Oscar, but Michael Palin won the BAFTA for Best Supporting Actor.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
I love that you know that. That's fantastic and makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, and the reason why I know that is because of the DVD commentary where John Cleese mentions it.
I love it.
Yeah. The moment in the movie that stood out to me as the most characteristically Monty Python was actually a scene that didn't include Michael Palin, which was the window dangling. The way
yes,
how it cuts
100%.
to it.
Yeah, how it cuts to it, but also the fact that
I apologize unreservedly.
Yeah, but that John Cleese is not like flailing around as Kevin Kline dangles him. He's just kind of like poised when he's there. Yeah. That there's the thing in Monty Python that made me think of is there's an episode where they're talking about this band of criminals named the Piranha Brothers, and one of them is named Dinsdale, and you never see him on screen, but you just hear people's testimonies, and you see these people. There's a guy who's like has his head stuffed in a box, and he's like stuck upside down forever, saying, "I wouldn't say a word against Dinsdale," like that kind of thing. All these people placed in extraordinary circumstances, being totally nonchalant about it. That to me is very Monty Python. To get into Kevin Kline's performance, like a recurring thing with that character, Otto, is that Kevin Kline does a lot of great maneuvers with his face and body throughout. There's often like some kind of interaction going on between Archie and Wanda in the foreground, and he just appears somewhere in the background while the camera doesn't even move.
Mm-hmm. This is very true.
Yeah, and so it's like those scenes, you almost like don't even need the dialogue to understand why it's funny.
Yeah.
And as you said, he's very expressive, but I like the way that he holds his face because there's a lot of intensity, but it's like somehow he's able to balance having intensity behind the eyes, but also having like a blankness, and in a good way. The fact that he, it continues like, don't call me stupid.
Yeah.
He does portray like being so dumb.
Yeah.
So well.
What was the middle thing?
Yes. Yeah. Oh my God.
And he has like, whether it's "don't call me stupid" or other lines, like that character has some very hammy lines in the movie, which in the hands of a less competent actor probably would not have landed as well as they did with Kevin Kline.
Yeah.
And I learned from the commentary too, that a lot of that was kind of improvised, that Kevin Kline never recorded the same take twice, and that for the editor of the film, it could be pretty difficult to work around that, but it was always worth it because of his spontaneity. I have to say, too, that Madeline, you mentioned something about Kevin Kline's face, and I think that maybe my favorite moment in that whole performance is his orgasm face.
Oh my God. I need to bring this up really quick.
Yeah.
Is this the only time in Oscar history that somebody has made that type of exaggerated face and won an Oscar
and been given an Academy Award?
Good question.
I didn't do a deep enough dive on this to give you a well-researched answer for that.
I feel like there's a subreddit. I
would need to rewatch this to be sure, but I think the answer is no, and I'm justifying that by thinking of a very recent win, which is Emma Stone in Poor Things.
okay,
Yeah.
but with the type of like it's a straight up punchline in that movie.
Oh my God.
You know what? This
Yeah.
is going back to the very beginning of our conversation. What is comedy? What is drama? It's
Right.
all everything mixed in together. But I mean,
Yeah.
the like singing volare, you know, like as it's
That's a fair
happening,
point, yeah.
like crossing his eyes, like the camera slow pans in. It's silent film.
Yeah.
It really
It is, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I was just going to say really quick for me, you know, you to answer your question about the humor. To me, the blend of the humor is the lightning in a bottle of
Yeah.
this movie. It's like
not a British comedy, it's a British American comedy.
yeah,
Yeah.
Totally.
absolutely, yeah. And I think that's the really kind of special, unique thing this movie has going for it.
Totally.
Yeah. Well, for me, that the thing that stuck with me and the thing that I went late last night, oh my God, that's what that movie is about. It's Brits versus Americans.
Mm-hmm.
And the
Mhm.
second I saw written by John Cleese, I was like, oh my God. As I was watching the movie, I was thinking like, Kevin Kline won an Oscar for this. Kevin Kline's one of my favorite actors on the planet. But is Kevin Kline doing too much? Like he's talking louder than everyone else.
Yeah.
The performance has a lot of swagger that's like extra large on film. And then all of a sudden I was going, he's American.
Yep. He's the ugly American.
Brits,
Yeah.
it's Brits writing the American heist hero
Exactly.
who is a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But is brave.
Mhm.
Like I was thinking, for instance, Michael Palin walking away saying that he's going to kill the witness, and him shouting in public, "I bet you won't kill her."
1 pound says you don't kill her.
Yes,
Yep.
1 pound says you won't kill her, and it wasn't until afterward that I went, "Oh my God!" It's a commentary on the American idiot who, yes, can speak Italian, but it's the names of pasta.
Exactly.
There's no substance there.
Yep.
It's the guy who has zero expertise, but all of the bravado. And the last person who wants to be called stupid. And suddenly I was like, oh my God, was this movie written yesterday?
Yeah.
About-
Totally.
And then thinking about, oh my God, John Cleese then writes the foil, who is the soft-spoken intellectual
Yeah.
who never wins, but knows real Italian. Not only does he know real
That's
Italian,
right.
he knows real
Russian.
Russian.
Exactly. You're
So-
absolutely right.
And he thinks the Russian is sexier.
He does.
Right.
Yeah.
And so does she, turns
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
So it's to me, it's a Brit writing a heist movie where the soft-spoken Brit beats the dumb idiot American.
Totally.
Yeah, that's very well said. And I actually, to that point, another anecdote from the commentary that I remember is that there were a few gags in the movie that John Cleese pointed out that he said were funny to British audiences that were not funny to American audiences that
Totally.
involved guns specifically.
Mm.
There's one shot where it's like the second time that you see Wanda and Otto in Ken's apartment, and they they have broken in, and then Ken arrives without suspecting that they'll be there. Then there's one shot in particular where the camera pans to see Otto coming out of the bathroom with the gun with the silencer on it, and that pan like got a laugh with British audiences, but not really with Americans because they're used to seeing guns in films. Which is, I mean, that's a piece of commentary that was as relevant in 1988 as it is today, I think, sadly. But and then John Cleese also said too that he thought he wasn't that good at writing American dialogue, so he would depend on Kevin Kline and Jamie Lee Curtis to kind of feed him idioms and slang that Americans would use to help their characters' performances land better.
I love that.
Yeah.
Totally.
The only trouble that I had with the comedy in this movie was searching for something to care about.
Yeah.
Like I love all of these characters. These characters make me laugh, but I can't really say like the thing I found myself the most emotionally connected to was Michael Palin's affection for animals.
Yes.
Like
Thank
that's
you.
kind of the only
Yeah.
that's kind of the only thing to grab onto in the movie. And the highest stakes for me were sort of Michael Palin getting out of this unscathed. He's the one character
Yeah.
I found myself caring about.
I totally
Yeah.
agree. It's like I did enjoy watching this movie, but I feel like I told Julian this the other day. I feel like this didn't like blow me back as much as I was kind of hoping it would. And I think it's because I don't really like anybody.
Yes.
I couldn't really root for anybody. I was also like, the treasure isn't exciting enough. It's just like a couple of diamonds. Like I don't know. I wanted like I don't know. I wanted something like an Indiana Jones, like jeweled like 1,000-year-old necklace or like something kind of fun like that.
Yeah,
I guess.
right.
Well, and I think if there was someone who you wanted to be wealthy at the end of the movie, that treasure would have value to you as a viewer. But there's no one you're really going, man, do I want them to get out of this with a lot of money? And for me, a lot of the movie, I was going, oh, I think it's Jamie Lee Curtis. I think she's playing all of them.
Yeah.
Okay, great. She's playing all of them. And then when she leans over the bunk in the house and says to him, "Are you rich?" And he says
That's my
no.
wife.
And then she goes like, and negates him completely.
Yeah.
That's when I gave up on her too.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that. I'd love to go off a little bit on that point, which is to say, to bring it back a little bit to Kevin Kline's character. I find one of the things that's so fascinating about him is that you are not asked to go on any journey with him at all as a character.
Totally.
Like you're asked of that with every other character, like Michael Palin's character with the stutter and asserting himself amongst this group, right? You have Archie, who is in a loveless marriage and feels trapped by feeling like he has to, because he's part of like a British system of law and as a barrister has to comport himself in a very proper way. And he just wants to burst out of all that. And then you have Wanda, who it's a little funny to see where she ends up and where I think the movie is asking you to also sympathize with her a little bit.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the movie, they kind of want you to go, oh, great, they're together. Otto is the one that you're not asked really ever to sympathize with this guy.
Not at all.
And I kind of love that about him.
I like it.
I kind of love, and I also love that he was awarded for that. A general audience member, I think, would be like, oh, this guy's hilarious. He's super, he's dangerous. He's unhinged. What is he going to get into next? I don't know if I want to believe this, but I feel like an Academy voter is going to look at this and say, okay, well, like, what's going on with this guy's character? And there's nothing going on with this character, and they're still and they're still like, great, give him the trophy. I
think he was awarded for the audacity of his non-growth.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's great. Yeah.
And I mean, when you consider like there's a vapidness about that character too, like even it's in the script that he's like reading Nietzsche and stuff like that, and yet has like kind of nothing to say about important topics. I think there's like there's an ennui with him too, that there's a restlessness that he just kind of like wants to get those diamonds and get out of there. That like really adds a fury to that character. That I think it doesn't make me like root for him exactly, but it's even though like he may not be a sympathetic character, he's not emotionless.
The other thing I just love about his character, I mean, you, Rob, used the term bravado. He's the loudest guy in this movie by a long shot. But I love that line. There's two lines he says right when he realizes that the jewels have been moved. And he goes, what do you have to do to make people trust you? And then he's like, and then he immediately like slams the car and he's like, people are always taking advantage of me. Yeah. And I love just going back to just the pure delusion of this guy is he's so like quote unquote totally deranged at the start of the movie, and he's the same at the end of the movie. Like you said, non-growth. A great way of putting it. It's just, to me, it feels like kind of this weird miracle that this guy was awarded an Oscar.
And with Otto, there's so much posturing. He wants so badly for people to think he's smart. But he, as you were kind of saying, like he tries to show his intelligence by like, you know, pretending to know foreign languages or by like parroting stuff that he's like philosophy that he's read that he doesn't understand.
Yeah.
And Wanda eventually like, kind of calls him on it. And it's like, I've actually thought about these things. I've actually looked these things up. I've actually had these discussions and you have no idea what you're talking about.
This is very true.
Before she says, what would Plato do? Apologize.
Very cool.
And there's also when Michael Palin is approaching him very slowly with the steamroller. I couldn't help but think of this is a tortoise and hare situation.
Yes.
And the idiotic American who is mocking the slow guy while he's standing in cement unknowingly about to meet his demise.
Yeah.
Like it is the most and when you realize that it's written by a Brit, you go like, oh, got it.
And it was just after he was being mocked and ridiculed by John Cleese. It was like, oh, winners, like North Vietnam.
Exactly. And I do think that they knew that the emotional core of the movie was Michael Palin's affection for animals, and that the fish called Wanda needed to be avenged.
Yes.
Like we actually legitimately cared about that.
Remember Wanda.
But also that, like, when you look at what Michael Palin's character Ken does, I mean, he does more damage than Otto. Like, you know, there's a body count that he leaves.
I mean,
and he attempts to do it with Otto, even though he's unsuccessful in that way.
I would say that Otto probably eats more fish than Ken kills dogs.
That's true.
Yeah.
But
That's
and
true.
by extension,
but
an old lady.
I mean, I say this as a vegetarian, or I guess I should say, I say this as a pescatarian. Like, you can weigh a fish and you can weigh a dog.
Quite literally.
A little different. Yes, that's true. Yeah.
If you take it
funny.
in those technical terms, I see the point. But yeah, it's like Ken is the more competent criminal of the two.
Yeah.
But even though he is more emotionally resonant.
I will say that Ken seems to kill all of these dogs by accident.
He does,
so I don't know that
yeah.
that's
True.
competent.
And be heartbroken by it.
Yeah.
That's true. But nonetheless, I mean, he is successful. And then by extension, that old lady dies because her dogs die. So yeah, maybe competence not the right word, but effective.
He is effective.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's true.
As a murderer.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask you guys really quick. Do we think that this is a worthy Oscar win?
I had a smile on my face whenever Kevin Kline would pop up in this movie. Like, kind of no matter where I was in the film, as soon as Otto came on screen, I was like, yay, he's back. And I think Kevin Kline is giving a really solid comedic performance in this. It's heightened. It kind of feels like it's almost separate from the rest of the movie. Like you were talking about, Rob, he's playing this American idiot character. And so he is tonally very different from everyone else.
Totally.
And that's difficult to pull off, but I think he does it successfully.
Yeah, I think that I agree with everything you just said, Madeline. I do think it's a worthy win. And I was considering it in context of who else was nominated, not just for supporting actor, but for some general Oscars that year, which was, the films of 1988, so Ceremonies in 89. Also notably, this is the legendary Alan Carr Oscars too.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Thank you for reminding me of this.
Yes, where the one that started off with that Snow White number with Rob Lowe, which it's infamous, but
which I did rewatch after watching this movie.
Yeah, which I still need to watch it properly.
Please, if the three of you or anyone listening has not watched the Snow White intro to the 1989 Oscars, it is so weird and it ruined Alan Carr's career. So you really need to experience it.
Yeah, although one thing that Alan Carr did that lasted then and has lasted since is changing the winning phrase from "the winner is" to "and the Oscar goes to." That's his doing as well.
Nope. He has quite the fingerprint.
Yes.
Cool.
But looking at who was nominated that year, I mean, it looks to me, and I'm about to refer to movies I haven't seen. So if anyone has details to contradict this point, please speak up. But there were a few other performances nominated that year that I would guess are comic. One of them being for Best Actor, Tom Hanks in Big.
Yeah. Although there is an emotional core.
Yeah, where is the
to his
line?
character? Yeah.
Yeah. But this is also notably before Tom Hanks has his double whammy when he crosses over into dramatic roles.
Yeah, this is true.
And also, again, educated guess, I don't know for sure, but in the supporting category, Dean Stockwell for Married to the Mob.
Oh, yeah. That would be comedic. Yeah.
Dougie loves that one.
I need to see it still. But yeah, so it seems like a pretty good year for comic nominees. Also notably, Kevin Kline was up against a veteran of the Ealing Studio system in his same category, Alec Guinness. But I think, and to be totally fair, I have not seen most of these movies that are nominated, but purely on the basis of how I enjoyed Kevin Kline in A Fish Called Wanda and the rarity of those performances getting the recognition they deserve. I do think this is a very worthy win that is, I think, stands the test of time.
How about you, Rob?
Totally. I think I also think we have to remember what the world knew of Kevin Kline yet at this moment.
Thank you.
Let's do it. This is a little bit of an explosive arrival.
It is
for him.
Yeah.
Because unless you saw him in Pirates of Penzance, you didn't know he could do this, right? So as you're watching this movie, my wife, as we were watching it yesterday, said, well, whether you like that movie or didn't like that movie, you can't deny that dude's a star. And you go like, there it is, right? I think when someone arrives with that kind of energy, it's very hard to ignore. And now, if we look at like Kevin Kline's oeuvre, you go like, oh yeah, this is his wheelhouse. But if you're just meeting him, I think the whole world, including the Academy, was going, who the hell is that?
Well, you're absolutely right. He was best known cinematically for his role in Sophie's Choice.
Right.
And then probably a little bit after The Big Chill, which were not particularly comedic performances, even though they're, I guess, in The Big Chill, there's an argument to be made that he's going for a little bit of something like that, but not like this. I mean, this is so like comedy in capital letters, all caps. Comedy.
Did any of you see the Pirates of Penzance TV movie that he did?
No,
I haven't. I've done that show.
Lord.
And so when I was kind of researching for this and I saw that he was in that, I was like, I need to go watch that.
He's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But I have to imagine that, for the mainstream movie audience, they were not sitting home to watch the musical version of the TV movie of Pirates of Penzance and didn't get to see him do something like this. But this is very much reminiscent of what he does in that movie in terms of somebody who's like, confident to his crew's detriment. It's just, but I think it was the arrival of him and his abilities and his comic sensibilities and his athleticism of his comedy on the big screen for the first time.
I'm with you on that. Real quick, I just want to give a shout out to Wendy, who is Archie's wife in this. Maria Aitken.
Oh my God.
Mariah Aitken, as
Thank
John
you,
Cleese said.
Mariah. Pardon me.
You wouldn't know just by reading the name.
Gotcha. Thank you. But I mean, absolutely killing it in every scene she's in.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
She has an all-time disapproving stare. Like it's just, it cuts straight through. And she has one of my favorite belly laughs in the whole movie, which is that moment when Otto is impersonating the CIA agent and he gives himself this like comically long British name. He's like Harvey Manfred Jensen.
Oh yes.
I was going to bring this up too, but go on.
And I love that when she calls him out later, she's like so casually
says it very
rips
naturally.
off the name. She's like, I will have you know, Mr. Manfred Jensen. Like, and just it is beautiful. It's so good.
One little detail that adds to that this is a subtle thing. So, and honestly, I think like I would attribute my catching this to having watched so much Monty Python, but she's kind of like, well, Mr. Manfred and St. John. And they're like, when people like in certain British dialects, when people say St. John, that's like a casual way of saying St. John.
Okay.
So that sounded to me like she was interpreting the name that way. It's like Manfred St. John or something like that.
Yeah.
And so that was a little detail I noticed that was like ace in the hole right there.
Yeah, so good.
There were two things I wanted to mention about her. One is that I felt like in making the movie, they were like, can we make the audience hate Archie less for his infidelity if we make his family awful? Like, just the worst.
Yep.
But also, the fact that you say one of your biggest belly laughs in the movie comes from her saying that line with complete sincerity. That goes back to actually for me, right? She's not playing that for a laugh, even a little bit. It's just the seriousness with which she's addressing the absurdity. When I teach a lot, and I love exposing teenagers who've never seen it to Abbott and Costello's Who's on First. Because what I say to them is, Lou Costello does not find any of this funny.
Yeah.
And in fact, the more furious he becomes in genuinely, actually, not understanding, the harder we laugh.
Yeah.
So her with complete sort of brutal confrontation, rattling off that name, gets us laughing far harder than if she had done it with a wink or a nod or leaned into the comedy even a little bit. The more seriously she takes it, the less funny she thinks it is, the funnier we're allowed to think.
Great point.
I love that. That's great. Anybody else? You guys? No?
Well, I have one other little detail I want to shout out from the movie, which John Cleese did not attest to this in the commentary, so I don't know how intentional it was, but I think that the means of the third dog murder, where like this marble block falls on the final dog that stands, that felt very much like a callback to the Monty Python gag of the 16-ton weight.
Oh my God, totally.
Yeah. And it's, that's something that I think an eagle-eyed Monty Python fan would pick up that maybe the average viewer would just think is plain funny.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Very cool. Well, I feel like we could talk forever about this, but we'll get through a couple of these other films. We will put a bow on A Fish Called Wanda, and let's shift over to City Slickers.
Yes, City Slickers, which is not to be confused with Three Amigos.
Nice.
Yes, the John Landis film from, I think it's 1985, that stars Steve Martin, Chevy Chase, and Martin Short.
I'm going to say it's 86. But
86, yeah.
I think it's, I got you.
Yes, which is also, a bunch of, it's in Spanish in that title, but it's a bunch of white actors in a Western milieu. That movie, and in a comedy, notably, that movie I think was I've heard it wasn't that well received on arrival, but it's gained a cult status since. It's a little different from City Slickers, but given the fact that it's like three guys in the desert, not to be confused with.
Yeah, which makes me think also of Three Godfathers. Which, I hadn't necessarily thought about, but we covered Tokyo Godfathers, which was kind of inspired by Three Godfathers.
That's a good point.
Which is a Western.
It's a Western. More, cowboy guys in the desert.
And that's a John Ford one, right?
Yeah, that's John Ford.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not to be confused with Three Men and a Baby Cow.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, Rob, you are acing this, man.
Wow.
Thank you.
Love it.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're done. Moving on.
And on that note, let me set this up a little bit. City Slickers. So right at the top, we meet a trio of close pals, Mitch, Ed, and Phil. Mitch works in radio advertising sales, and he has hit a personal and professional wall. Ed is a sporting goods salesman with a bachelor's spirit. He's not really looking to get tied down too much. And Phil is a supermarket manager trapped in a loveless marriage. Sounds somewhat familiar to Archie, perhaps, from the film we just discussed. And also under the thumb of his father-in-law, boss. When we meet them, they are in Pamplona, Spain, and they are engaging in an ill-fated running with the bulls. It dawns on Mitch there that he and his friends engage in these dangerous activities because these moments of excitement are band-aids for gaping wounds in their lives. So at Mitch's 39th birthday, his wife implores him to take Ed up on a new vacation adventure idea he has, cattle herding out west for a few weeks, asking him to, quote, find his smile again. So the trio embark on this adventure, unsure of what they're really getting themselves into. It's a journey that pits them against nature, at each other at times, against alcoholic cowboys, other weekend warrior types, and a memorable trail boss named Curly, whose steely disposition belies the wisdom he possesses. The kind of wisdom and perspective that our trio of buddies begin to find for themselves. What's our personal history with this film?
This was a first time watch for me for this conversation. I've known of the movie for some time. I don't think in a super substantial way, other than knowing that it was like a few comic actors, Billy Crystal at the lead, being fish out of water in the desert. That was kind of it. What about you guys?
Yeah, I knew nothing about this movie. Zero.
How about you, Rob?
I knew it as sort of a slapsticky farce from my childhood. I knew it lumped in with, Daniel Stern's other fun comic turns and Billy Crystal as sort of like the icon of the comedy specials he used to do with Whoopi Goldberg and Robin Williams.
Totally.
And so he was this icon. And I think it was on HBO a lot when I was a kid. And it would be something that I would sort of like giggle my way through as a slapsticky thing. But man, does it hit hard at 42.
I'm not far behind you.
Different movie.
And this movie
is
hits.
a different movie.
Yeah, it really does. I'm with you.
Yeah.
This was a movie that for me was... So when I was younger, I used to love to try to find movies that were PG-13.
HBO.
Kind of
Hashtag HBO.
Exactly. There we go. Well, I didn't grow up with cable, but so the video store I ended up working at was able to fill in a lot of gaps for me. But I always wanted to push up against the boundaries of what my parents would let me watch. And so when I found out that this was a PG-13 comedy that had some familiar faces, I knew Billy Crystal by that point. I was like, I got to see this. And I remember actually really liking this movie when I was like 11 or 12. I thought this movie was super fun. And I just have to say too, just on a personal note, I think I'm just one of these people who has season tickets for anything Billy Crystal. Like,
Totally.
This guy just, I don't know what it is. He rides the line of comedy and drama as well as any of his contemporaries, really as good as anybody. And so, yeah, I'm kind of in the bag for this movie in general. And coming back to it, Rob, to your point, dude, this movie hits hard. That scene, the bring your dad to work day scene.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
I found myself in tears probably 5 or 6 times during this movie last night.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the scene that really, like, I'm the youngest of the group for context. I'm 28, but the scene in this movie that hit me the hardest was when they're walking in the desert and talking about their best and worst days of their lives.
That's
totally.
very nice. That's a great scene.
Yeah, it's very, very profound. And I think that that's something that kind of at any age, no matter your life experience, will really hit very hard. Like, I was thinking about my own best and worst days watching that scene, like I was in that conversation.
Yeah, I really love how Ed's is the same. That's a really interesting choice.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, that hit me very hard too. And I had a feeling before, he said, "Oh, and what was the worst day?" Same day. I had a feeling he was going to say that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I also, just on a more humorous note, between watching this and My Cousin Vinny side by side, I thought that Bruno Kirby and Joe Pesci have very similar sounding voices.
Totally.
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
I have a tough time seeing Bruno Kirby as anything other than the limo driver from Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
I know.
But I shook it off.
Yeah.
I happen to like him a lot in the movie Modern Romance.
Haven't seen it.
Haven't seen
totally.
it. Is that Albert Brooks?
It is.
Yeah.
He's good in that movie. I mean, that movie is incredible. Have you seen Modern Romance, Rob?
Yes. Yeah, he's great.
He's quite good. He's not like a standout, but he's very good. He's a good straight man in that movie for what's going on.
He's also, his performance in City Slickers is a slow burn for me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning, you think he's the guy you're going to care the least about, and it's kind of subversive how much you end up caring about him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a little bit like in a movie we discussed almost a year ago, a little bit like Ralph Garcia in Fame.
Yes.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well
it's like
played,
the guy who seems like the loudmouth at first, and you end up being really invested in his arc.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that comparison there.
Thanks.
Totally.
And I love that what you said about you found yourself thinking about your best and worst days. I found 4 or 5 times in this movie where I found myself thinking about, oh, what would my trip be?
Yeah.
What would my thing be? What is my one thing, Jack Palance? What is my, like, it asks me to participate in it. And it was sort of irresistible to lean in and sort of question your own moments in your own life throughout the movie. It asks that of you, and I think really successfully.
Yeah, I'd say so too. I would just say, rewatching City Slickers for me for this conversation, I was reminded of how this movie was one of the first and maybe memorable introductions to the concept of the midlife crisis.
Yeah.
Like I said before, I was a preteen when I first saw this, but I felt like the concepts were really well conveyed for me, even at that age.
Oh, yeah.
And I can think of a lot of things that make that theme really resonant to broader audiences. Like, I think this movie's got an incredible, like, joke a minute, one of those Gans Mandel scripts. Like, those guys, I don't think people have a handle on it, but those guys were masters of their craft.
Oh my God.
Yeah, weren't they?
Yeah.
They're just, I mean, seriously, unbelievable. They did A League of Their Own too, which is, I know.
I love that movie.
Yeah, love that movie. But the script's great. I think the performances are really strong. The relationships between the male characters.
Yeah.
The idea of,
Oh my God.
yeah, the idea of finding redemption where you kind of least expect it. I think all those aspects are really strong in this movie, but I'm curious for you guys, what aspect of the movie helped that theme land for you?
I was astonished by how bleak they let the beginning be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah.
There is the first act of this movie, 25 minutes in, you're going, we got to dig these guys out of here.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it is, you don't think there's going to be a path forward for them. They really do bottom out desperately. But I think that's what leads to their victories in the last act of the movie, making me weep. Like, because you've seen them come from such a low place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm with you guys on that about like the bleakness of the beginning. Kind of like you said, Emilio, even as a younger viewer, there's something about like the midlife crisis element of this movie that really hits. And maybe part of what that is that in my view, it wasn't just about midlife crisis, but I think that this movie for me really kind of nailed its meditation on what people seek from tourism. That there is like kind of a
fascinating.
That's something I've thought about in other movies too. That like in seeking tourism, like that's actually it's just hitting me now. That's one thing in a real life thing that makes for a great journey on itself that translates pretty easily into a script. Like you don't have to change a lot about the reality of tourism to make a good like 3-act story about it, depending on how the trip goes, of course. When you consider what people seek from tourism, apart from just the general curiosity of seeing places, I think there's often like, a sense of some kind of spark in your life that's lost that you're aiming to revitalize, maybe by like learning another language or reconnecting with family or, spending time with friends that you haven't seen in a while. There were 2 movies I was thinking about a lot while watching City Slickers that have come since then. One of them is The Hangover. Yeah. Which is also about
interesting about 3 guys too.
Three middle-aged guys. I think there's a shared sense of bleakness among the 3 characters in City Slickers that is not shared in that movie. They're more different characters. The one who I thought was the most connected to a City Slickers character was, I forget his name, but the Ed Helms character in The Hangover who's stuck in a miserable relationship, much like the Daniel Stern character in City Slickers. Yeah. And obviously, I think that movie is much more of a misadventure than City Slickers is. But the other movie I thought of is a movie that is out right now and up for at least one Oscar. We'll see if it wins by the time this episode comes out, which is A Real Pain.
Yeah, I figured you were going to say that.
Yeah, because and that's a little different. It's about 2 cousins who are going on a trip using money that their late grandmother has passed along to them to visit the town where in Poland where she grew up and had to flee.
Yeah.
Sure. How about you, Madeline?
I like how, Julian, you were starting to talk about like how these 3 characters, they're all a little different. They're all at different points in this. They're all experiencing this crisis in different ways. Phil, Daniel Stern's character, he's given up. Like, I mean, he directly says like where you're at this point, like that's where you're at. Like, even though he is chaotic and makes bad choices.
Yes, very true.
I do not endorse Phil's behavior in this movie. But he's totally given up at the beginning of this movie. And Mitch, I think, has been on a downwards trajectory for a while, but seems to think like maybe there's something I can do about it still. Like I think that he's considering like could I leave the job? No, I can't do that. Like, I think that he's still thinking that there's a way out. He's not like totally given up hope yet.
Yeah.
And then Ed, he overall seems like the happiest.
Right. At the beginning, yeah.
But his is more internal in that like he doesn't trust himself.
Yeah.
He sees like what his father had done. And he sees how his friends have pointed out to him that, he has been dating younger and younger women as he's gotten older. And I think he's afraid he talks about how he's afraid of commitment. He's afraid of having children. I think that's because he has some self-hatred.
Sure.
Where he doesn't think that he can commit to one person and commit to one life.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting is Mitch feels like the roots of his tree are unstable.
Yeah.
And it's like, do I want to cut these roots or do I want them to grow deeper into the ground? Ed is going like, I've never had roots. Yeah. I'm terrified of roots. And Phil is going like, is it too late to plant a new tree?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're all having like these like really existential moments that this crazy adventure gets them all through the midlife crisis, but they're all very different. And I think that's what's so beautiful about this friendship is that they're not just comic foils for each other. They've really written into this story unique purposes for all three of those characters to be in this place at that time together.
Yeah. I'm with that. I'm going to shift slightly. We've given a lot of love to the three amigos, so to speak.
But we're missing someone.
We are missing someone rather important, and that would be the trail boss, Curly.
Oh man,
Rob, why don't you get us going on this? What's Curly?
I just think it's one of the most masterful screen performances I've ever seen. I mean, to take 12 minutes, is it, of screen time?
Yeah,
and give a character a complete biography with needs and wants and a rich history and a beginning, middle, and end in 12 minutes of screen time that forever changes all three of our protagonists. Like, that is a monumental feat. And also done with not very many words. The amount of language he's given is so specific and it's so intentional. There's not a wasted syllable on that character.
Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes, I think it's moved into my top 10 movie quotes ever, is "She could have been the love of your life. She is."
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I know, right?
That wrecked me. I mean, that is just masterful, and his ability to be scary in the beginning and then be Santa Claus on a horse next to him by the end. It's a really beautiful performance.
And so much of it is like how we interpret him at first the way that the guys interpret him.
Right. Yeah. The way Mitch is like, oh my God, this is like, where'd this guy come from?
But I feel like when you watch it back, which I did a little bit, I didn't get through the whole thing again, then I do feel like you always kind of see this lighter energy in him that because of his outwardly appearance, people kind of miss.
Right.
But he's kind of like a little jokester a little bit. I just like he's messing with them a lot of the time. He's playing into this role of being the scary boss.
Yeah. I love that scene around the campfire with the harmonica.
Yeah.
And him he's taking the knife, and to your point, he's totally playing with him. And even when he throws it, and he's just like, he stops and needs, Curly's permission to get the song going again is just really fun. I told Madeline before we started recording, I don't think they make movies like this anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They really don't. This is like there's like a sweet spot with this movie about how much it's going for and the style of comedy that is kind of running through its veins.
I don't think we get this sincere in comedies anymore. And I think it's the sincerity balanced with the comedy that I just really love and I really connected with.
Yeah, and I mean, like the way that the character is portrayed with like the physical humor and sort of humor of his general aura, the way that that's balanced with his, there's kind of an existential quality too. I mean, the closest thing I could think of recently was the title character from the Coen Brothers movie, The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, where Tim Blake Nelson plays, there are some really hilarious physical gags that he does in that role, but there is maybe not until its closing moments without spoiling them, but there is an existentialism that comes with that character too. But I do really feel like the presence that Jack Palance has in this movie is something that you don't see that much anymore. And like the opening notes that you have with him are like maybe the most conventionally comical part of his performance.
I crap bigger than you.
Yeah, I crap bigger than you.
Yep.
Which he said, Jack Palance said during his Oscars acceptance speech too, because Billy Crystal was the host.
Yeah, can we talk about Jack Palance's Oscar acceptance speech
for
this movie?
Of the three that we're discussing,
so
I think it's the most notable.
It's weird in the best way.
Yeah, because he's talking about what people are asked to do on sets and then goes off and does one-armed push-ups.
He's basically saying that he's so old and studios don't want to take a risk on an older actor. They want to cast somebody younger and make them up to look older, because you cast an old person, what if they drop dead during production? And to make his point that he's still just as fit as anybody else, he goes down the stage and does a bunch of one-arm push-ups.
Yeah. I mean, iconic. Honestly.
But my wife said that he was her father's hero because of that moment.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Wow.
I can see that.
Wow. But because actually, you're bringing this up about like him winning an Oscar at an old age. I mean, of the three main performances that we're discussing tonight, this is the only one where you can argue there's a legacy element to the win.
Yeah, because he was nominated early on in his career, like in the 50s a couple of times.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Rob, I wanted to ask this really quick. Are you familiar with the teleplay, The Requiem for a Heavyweight?
No.
Oh my God. I
am now.
I implore all of you and any listener to check it out. That was not my introduction. That was my reintroduction to Jack Palance. But
I'm in.
I recently watched a bunch of those teleplays. Not recently, maybe like 10 years ago. I saw them, and and he's so lovable. You just there's something about that guy's eyes.
Yeah, the sparkle.
There's a sparkle in there, and there's also, like you said, like Santa Claus on a horse. There's something about him where it's like he can't stay the mean guy for too long, and I'm glad that the movie knows
because he enjoys it too much.
Yeah, for
he
sure.
enjoys it too much, all of it.
Yeah,
he enjoys hurting the cattle, and he enjoys hurting the people.
Yeah,
and he can only pretend to be miserable for so long before you see the glimmer in the eye, and you get the impression that he's been doing this a long time.
Mm-hmm.
They love pretending that the tourists who show up are a pain in the ass. But the transformation they put the tourists through is secretly their favorite part.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. One of the things that Jack Palance really brings to it is there's a little bit of he's a lovable guy, but there is, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about his intensity too. I think he has an energy that reminded me very much of at times of Quint in Jaws, where it's a little bit like, come on, get your hands dirty, kid. Like that kind of thing, where it's like,
totally.
You got city hands, Hoopa.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Which, fun fact, reflected some real life tension between Robert Shaw and Richard Dreyfuss on that set.
Yeah.
But, most literally in City Slickers, when they realize that a cow that they have been following is about to give birth, and then Billy Crystal's character, Mitch, has to do this thing that he's initially very uncomfortable with, but there's a little bit of from Curly in a respectful way, a little bit of come on, just do it. Kind of feeling.
Yeah.
I'm so in this movie as soon as we have Norman. I mean, I'm in this movie already.
Yeah.
But once they clean up Norman, I'm like, this calf is the cutest cow I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
he becomes the viewer's one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It really does.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. That's honestly, now that you're saying that, Rob, I think that's a great question for someone writing a script. What is the one thing here?
Yeah.
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 But
and again, another question that the movie asks the audience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What is your one thing? And we all can't help but during the credit roll think about what our one thing is.
Yeah. And for the Academy in 1991, that one thing was Jack Palance.
I know.
Yeah.
It's the only award that the film was nominated for, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
What do we think? Worthy Oscar win there?
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's worthy because of what he did with so little.
Yeah, totally. It's unconventional in the fact that he has such limited screen time, but he's so effective in that time. You can't deny that.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's like the limited screen time element. I think that's, for a great performance, that's always kind of a plus too. Notably, this is, 1991 movies. This is also the Silence of the Lambs Oscars. So another famously low screen time performance, Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter, wins that year too.
I think he definitely has more screen time.
Oh yeah, certainly. But it's what Jack Palance does with so little. And I think that in this case, I mean, the legacy element of the award, I think, it's worth considering, but I don't think that makes this unearned. I think that it is a good case of the Academy and really, the filmmakers, director Ron Underwood, lead actor Billy Crystal, and everyone else involved in City Slickers realizing, this guy is a gem. We've got to honor him.
Yeah.
And so I think that, whereas sometimes legacy awards get kind of written off as they're just doing it because they haven't done it before. I think that this is, a sense of really honoring the guy's legacy with a role that is also very earned in itself. That's kind of a thing that it seems like he would have been waiting for.
Yeah. I mean, this film was not written or directed by Billy Crystal, but this concept was his.
Yeah.
And he said that when he wrote down the concept, he wrote Jack Palance. Jack Palance is who he wanted for this role from the very beginning. And at first he wasn't going to be able to do it. He had a conflict. So I'm just really glad that it ended up working out.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah, and as somebody who has spent my whole career playing the unconventional leading man, I do have to say, Daniel Stern in this movie, if anyone else I think deserved an Oscar nom, it's Daniel friggin' Stern, which is a sentence that culturally we don't think we want to say.
Yeah.
But I would throw Daniel Stern's performance in this movie up there with John Candy in Trains, Planes, and Automobiles.
Great comp.
The heartbreaking comic geniuses of our time. And I think he, thanks to Home Alone, is sort of put in this box that we love to poke fun at. But his work in this movie is up there with any of the great comic performances that make me well up. I defy you to find a comedic performance, and again, we put that in quotes, that makes you feel as much as him getting in that damn cab with her at the end.
Yeah.
I just, and then he's got to play that breakdown in the tent with the gun in his hand.
Right.
Yeah.
He's got to land that beat. And when he does profoundly, I think his performance, not only in this movie, but kind of in his career, doesn't get enough credit.
Yeah.
Totally.
I'm with you on that. He's one of those kind of underappreciated guys who I think
Yes.
you look at, to the point we're bringing up right now. I think is kind of known for these very broad comedic performances and not really for the range that he can bring to them. So yeah. Any last quick little shout out of a fun moment in this movie?
So I wore my Mets hat. It's not blue, so people don't realize it's a Mets hat, but it is in fact a Mets hat. So
I love it.
So I'm a Mets fan. I was very excited when Emilio, you lent me this DVD or this Blu-ray, and I didn't know anything about this movie yet, and I saw on the cover that Billy Crystal's in a Mets hat, and I was like, great, all right, I'm in.
Nice.
So I really enjoy that he wears the Mets hat pretty much throughout the entire film. I do like when he loses the Mets hat and he finally comes in with the cowboy hat. I think that's a very triumphant moment for him. I thought it was interesting, listening a little bit in my research. Billy Crystal, I think, is actually a Yankees fan, and his best day in this movie, Mitch's best day,
involves the Yankees,
is going to a Yankees game when he's 8. And that's actually a true Billy Crystal story. But I think I heard that the Mets had donated a lot of money to his comic relief charity. And so he agreed to wear Mets gear through most of this movie.
I also think if they're leaning into the underdog, that's a better story.
Good point, Rob.
But the other thing I wanted to mention to Madeline's point earlier, and I love this, is you said they don't make movies like this anymore. I think this movie is one of the greatest cases for practical effects in the current filmmaking era, because when I think of go with me on this, the crane shot in Hello Dolly, the film version of Hello Dolly.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
When Gene Kelly directed a crane at the end of Before the Parade Passes By to crane up and you see tens of thousands of people.
Yeah.
You can't help but well up and go, oh my God, they did that. And when they were herding that herd down that muddy slope and across the river,
Oh my God.
I couldn't help but cry and go, they did that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like when you're watching Lord of the Rings and they're like, they're going to attack all of the trolls, you go like, whoa, this is cool. Look at the scale. But I don't think
They did
they
that.
did that.
Yeah, you're right.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
there's something, there's extra hair standing up on the back of your neck when you go, they did that.
Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
movie had a lot of those moments for me.
Totally. And that scene, I had mentioned to you before we recorded, Emilio, like the peril you feel in a way that if the cows in the river were CGI, you would not feel. And
100%.
and as they're crossing, I write in my notes, what about Norman? His legs
Yeah.
are so little.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so then when they have to go save him, and that goes on for a while, because at first you think like, Mitch is running at him, he's circling the lasso. You're like, all right, this is going to be his big moment. He's going to get the lasso. He's going to pull the cow in. It does not work. Like it goes for a while.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just, but it totally, it pays off. I like the fact that it stretches a bit longer.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, it's because it's got to involve the other guys.
Exactly.
Right? They've got
they
to
need
all,
their triumphant moments too.
Well, they all have to kind of come to Mitch's rescue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When Jerry Zaks was directing me in Mrs. Doubtfire, another thing that he used to say that I think touches on this point is that he said the greatest comedies are life and death.
Mm.
The stakes are the highest they could possibly be. For me and Mrs. Doubtfire, being with my kids
Mhm.
is life and death, to the point where I will do anything. I will disguise myself as an elderly Scottish nanny. It is life and death. City Slickers is life and death. And as we move forward in this conversation, My Cousin Vinny is life and death.
Yeah.
The stakes are as high as they can possibly be, which makes the storytelling richer, but also the comedy richer.
Mhm.
When the stakes are that high, people will go to desperate lengths, which leads to bigger laughs when the stakes are that high. And we buy it. We buy the desperate lengths that they go to if the stakes are that high.
Right. On the subject of death, real quick, my little detail that I love in this movie is the reveal that they did all that and that they're all going to go to a slaughterhouse. There's
Oh my
Oh,
it's
yeah.
great.
when that lands, you are just like them. And
Oh, yeah.
to the
Oh,
to the
yeah.
point that you brought up, Rob, it's like you feel like you're physically with these people and
Yeah.
these
100%.
animals. And when that happens, I mean, it's funny because what I love about it is that there's a little line right after where the guy who tells him the news says, he's like, these animals don't have much of a life. And in keeping with the way the script is done, which I think is just so great, there's a laugh. There's a big laugh where Billy Crystal says, he's like, well, neither does Phil, but we're not prepared to eat him.
And then Phil says he's right.
Thank you. Yes, exactly. And I love that because it somehow it gets the best of both worlds. It has its cake and eats it too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This is like, I don't know, man. The more we talk about it, I'm like,
I'm telling you,
City
and
Slickers
I
all
also,
the way, man.
I also would love to do research and find out if they filmed them bringing them into the pens, like arriving at that farm last,
Yeah.
Mm.
because there is a sense of victory to the three of them riding them in together, even in their failed adorable high five.
right. Yes. Yeah.
That feels to me, both in their confidence riding, in their confidence not looking in the direction that they're riding, in their confidence with their cowboy hats and their equipment. It wouldn't surprise me if that was filmed last and they were actually able to celebrate what they had done in the film as they were bringing all of those cows in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd like to know that too.
Interesting theory. Yeah.
Very cool. How about you?
Well, it's, on a slightly lighter note than some of the things that have been said, but like to your point, Rob, of like, they did that. One scene that really had me like amazed at that and also just laughing my ass off was just the scene around the middle of the movie when Mitch is trying to turn on the coffee maker.
Oh yeah.
And it sends all of the cows just running astray, and then they have to corral them back together. That was just, kind of like, when we talked about Home Alone, Emilio, you said that like the final act of that movie just has you going, let's fucking go.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
that's what I thought
yeah.
watching this scene in City Slickers.
To the point we were making earlier too about the tourism.
Yeah.
Curly is like totally unfazed. He's like,
Yeah.
I've seen this happen before.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Exactly.
You city people.
This is when we're gonna see what you have or have not learned.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And it's still like this big laugh that kind of, I think, does a good job to balance the more somber moments that happen in the movie too.
Cool.
But yeah, just on a practical level, I was pretty amazed by that.
Totally.
Nice. Well,
As you keep on mentioning the tourism, it makes me think of the Mark Twain quote: "The travel is the enemy of ignorance." I think this movie's a great case for that as well.
I
yeah.
love that. That's great.
Anything to wrap up City Slickers before we move on?
I think we've done it.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
I am so excited about our third movie, which is the only one that I had seen previously, which is My Cousin Vinny.
Yes, My Cousin Vinny, which is not to be confused with Uncle Buck, which, released pretty close in time, famously starring John Candy, directed by John Hughes. I have not seen this film, but just as a comedy movie that is titled after a family
Extended family.
Extended family.
Yes.
Released pretty close in time in 1989. My Cousin Vinny is not to be confused with Uncle Buck.
Yes. And while the Cousin Vinny of the title offers a certain amount of protection to the characters in the film, we should not confuse My Cousin Vinny with My Bodyguard, which is the 1980 coming-of-age film starring Adam Baldwin as the titular bodyguard and Matt Dillon in his acting debut, who was the bully whose behavior necessitates the acquisition of said bodyguard. I've only seen bits of that movie, but it's very different from My Cousin Vinny, so please don't confuse the two.
All right. We're going
Let's
to talk
do it.
about it. Okay.
Yeah.
So in My Cousin Vinny, we open up on college friends Bill and Stan driving down the open roads of Alabama. After stopping for rations at a local convenience store, they're pulled over by cops who take them into custody and reveal a terrible twist of fate. These two young men are being charged with murder and accessory to murder, stranded in an unfamiliar town with the electric chair seemingly awaiting them. They turn to Bill's cousin Vinny, a rookie attorney just 6 weeks into practicing law. What Vinny lacks in procedural knowledge, he makes up for in moxie, a quality shared by his fiancée, Mona Lisa, along for the ride. The system seems to be stacked against Vinny and the boys, with a no-nonsense judge and a long-established prosecutor just itching to take them down. But will Vinny surprise everyone and come through for the boys, win his first case, and finally wed Lisa?
Yeah.
That's it.
You have to see this movie to find out.
Or just keep listening to us talking, because I think we're going to say some of those things eventually.
That's for sure, yes. My personal history with this movie is this is one of those I've known it's been out there. This was my first time seeing it. My
my
I know.
God.
I know, Rob.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was it for me. Yeah, my first time seeing it.
My personal history of this movie is pretty similar.
Really?
This is, I mean, I think I've known the name of it for kind of as long as I've known about movies, but I had not seen it until earlier this week that we're recording. But especially, I don't know why I was at this point in time, but in like the last few years of my life, I've just had, whenever this movie comes up in conversation, like apropos of the reason why we picked it, it's always because of Marisa Tomei. Whenever I hear about that movie, it's like hardly ever about the actual Cousin Vinny. It's just Marisa Tomei.
Yeah, cool.
Rob, I think you've got a history with this.
It's been in my top 10 since it came out. I can quote it frontward and backward.
Love that.
Like it is just as an Italian American. No, it just also I think Joe Pesci was very present in my house, both in like Goodfellas and all kinds of things as that guy. So seeing him be so funny.
Yeah.
But also sincere. There's a lot of moments in this movie where he's delivering like real stakes and turmoil that when it juxtaposes to the farce stuff, it's just so damn delicious.
Yeah. I totally agree. I mean, this is a movie that I saw first as a teenager. I haven't seen a whole lot since, but it's held a place in my heart for the last, 15 to 20 years. I love this movie. It all came rushing back to me like as soon as I put it on. I learned the very short "Imagine You're a Deer" monologue for an audition when I was about 16. I was actually auditioning for Little Shop of Horrors. I did not get the part, but I did do the show. I did not get the part of Audrey, but I still have that so ingrained in my mind, and I just really, really loved. I love Marisa Tomei in this. I love Lisa as a character. This when you guys actually had pitched talking, I forget whose idea it was, but it was one of you that had pitched talking this movie, even though you guys hadn't seen it before. And I was just so excited to talk about it and expose you guys to it because I love this so deeply.
One of my favorite lines in the movie is a single syllable that comes right before the "Imagine You're a Deer" monologue. Yeah. When Joe Pesci says, "How about these pants I got on? You think they're okay?" And she doesn't answer him, to which Joe Pesci responds, "Oh!"
he sells
does
it.
That. He does that a couple times in the movie, but that's the really memorable one. Yeah.
So what were y'all's kind of first
I'm so
initial
curious
thoughts after seeing this for the first time?
I have to say, when the movie first got rolling, it did not move the way that I thought it would.
It has a unique pacing.
It really does. It also felt very matter of fact, which I kind of liked and I wasn't totally ready for. I thought this was going to be a little more of a farce. And it really wasn't. It was played rather straight. And I think to some of the points we were bringing up earlier, the characters and who they are and the situations that they're in, that's kind of driving a lot of the humor. So I liked it. I mentioned to you, Madeline, before we started talking that I was like, okay, cool. And then when the grits argument happens, I was like, hell yeah.
That's where it picks up.
That was let's fucking go for me.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, the last 30 minutes of this movie, like just the trial, the interrogation of the witnesses, it's just like one win after another. And then you have to add the stakes back in where it's like, oh, well, now we got this FBI guy. And I just think it's so well crafted. I love the pacing of the entire movie, but it is unique. Yeah. And so the last 30 minutes is so let's go, as you said.
To the pace point, Emilio, I think so much of what you're saying is the impact of the location in the movie. We're going to take Marisa Tomei and we're going to put her, to use your words, in a place that is slow and matter of fact.
Right.
People are deliberate and slow. And you're going to take these people who have a gratuitous language back and forth, and they're going to talk faster than everybody else, and you're going to see what happens when those two worlds collide.
Yeah.
And I feel like the movie starts in the atmosphere of that town and ends being influenced, the pacing being influenced by the presence of those characters.
Right.
Love that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that, in my experience of watching it for the first time, I mean, there was like, to some degree, I knew what to expect in terms of like, the general arc of the movie, but that really doesn't prepare you for the direct experience of watching it. Like even in retrospect, I think that like when we're comparing the comic performances of the actors who won Oscars in these movies, I feel like Marisa Tomei's performance in this movie is the one that I'd say is like the least gag dependent. There's nothing really in this movie that I would call like a gag. It's more just, I feel like she's funny in a real way, like in a relatable way. Like I feel like the way that, a friend of mine who is funny, the way that I'm talking about that.
So much of why she's funny, I mean, we've talked about this, I think, a lot so far tonight. So much of why she's funny is like, she is being herself in this, in a different setting.
Yeah.
It's the contrast with the setting. I think that if this movie took place in New York, she'd be great, but she would not be as funny.
Well, one of her first
you blend.
You blend. That's what we'd have to say to her if this movie were set in New York. And that was actually, I got to listen to part of the DVD commentary from director Jonathan Lynn, where he said that like when he watched the dailies and saw the clip of her saying that line, "Oh yeah, you blend." Like when he saw that, he knew that he had picked the right actress.
Yeah.
And that they were taking a chance on her at that time, as much as this is the movie that cements her legacy for many people, for many viewers in the 90s and since. This was a breakout movie for her that she was not very well known beforehand. and that I forget exactly what, but there was a movie that came out in maybe 91 that Jonathan Lynn had seen her in, where she played a very different type of character.
Yeah, I think it was maybe a John Landis movie.
I think so, yeah. Which the name is escaping me right now, but that was his basis for casting her. And then, this, I feel like ever since then, this movie, when you like talk about highlights of Marisa Tomei's career, I feel like this movie is number one, hands down.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've talked already about like comedy, drama, Western, like what are these genres exactly?
Yeah.
Like this is marketed as a comedy. People think of this as a comedy. We're covering it because it's a comedy on this particular episode, but there are a lot of deeper themes woven throughout this narrative. So we have these two young men who are wrongly accused of crimes, which if convicted could lead to their execution. And on the commentary, Jonathan Lynn spoke about how he also wanted to make a statement about the class system, with Vinny is coming from more of a working class background, whereas the judge and the prosecutor are implied to come from more privilege. The judge went to Yale. The prosecutor is so-and-so the third.
Right. Proud of it.
Yeah. So which of these themes or other themes stood out to you most saliently?
That's my word.
Yeah, but you hadn't said it yet, so I get it this time.
That's okay. It can be passed around.
And I also want to ask, I think particularly to Rob, like what benefit is there to exploring these kind of deeper themes through comedy?
Yeah, go for it.
To me, those are the greatest movies of all time. Yeah. It's the Trojan horses, right? The greatest example that comes to mind is Jurassic Park.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Jurassic Park is not about dinosaurs. Jurassic Park is about two people coming to terms with having children.
Yeah.
Whoa.
This movie is not about a trial. It's about two people at a crucial moment in life falling back in love with each other. It's the plot. City Slickers is not about herding cattle. So as we read these plots, then after you see the movie, you go, what is the movie about? Mm-hmm. Right? Over the course of this trial, we watch a couple who's not ready to have kids, who's not ready to get married, fall in love. When Marisa Tomei testifies on the stand, and they fall back in love with each other.
It's so sexy.
Yes. Yes. But those are my favorite movies. And this is right up there because it's not about what it's claiming to be about. The circumstance provides the stakes.
Yeah.
But what is ultimately the journey is these two people who we adore falling back in love with each other. And the Trojan horse is such a beautiful, so beautifully delivered in this movie because you think you know what it's about.
Yeah. When you finally see Mona Lisa Vito on the stand in that climactic scene, it's just, there's just such like a bang, bang, bang thing about it. She's like, like slay girl, like that kind of thing. Like something that I think is notable about My Cousin Vinny too. And that, like, Emilio, you said that like the last 30 minutes of the movie are kind of that let's fucking go part. And I think a big reason why is because they're kind of saving up the best part of Marisa Tomei's performance for them. Although, I mean, they're giving you abundant hints that something's going to happen with her. And one thing I kept wondering about her while watching the movie, about the character Lisa, that is answered at the beginning of that scene, is like, isn't she like working? Does she have a job?
Exactly.
Like,
how can
she's
she
an out of work hairdresser?
Yeah.
But like how can she just come down here for weeks?
Exactly. And then there's other scenes too where like, you get a look at who she really is. I mean, I think that this is not her first scene in the movie, but I think the scene regarding her performance where I started to go like, oh, I am into this, was the bedroom chat about the leaky faucet.
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah.
You want to talk about sexy?
Yeah. Again,
dead
very
on
sexy.
balls accurate.
Well, that's it. And the foreshadowing of "Are you sure?"
Yeah.
I'm positive.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're setting you up. One of the things I love about the writing in this movie is how much I love when a movie's ahead of me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love when I have to chase things that the movie knows that I don't know yet. One of the great examples of that is that moment, right? Are you sure? I'm positive. I don't. We're unaware that we're being set up.
Yeah.
Right.
The other moment is when he hands the sheriff that piece of paper.
Yes.
And the piece of paper goes, "Why?"
Yeah.
And then they cut away.
Yeah.
So now the movie knows something I don't.
I love that you brought this up because on my rewatch, something I was thinking about is the fact that Marisa Tomei, like Lisa, is the one that tells us, like, she's the one that reveals, what's happening. But Vinny had to know it too.
Yeah.
Because he has to be able to prompt the sheriff. He's giving the sheriff that exact same, the model of the car and the year of the car. He also has all of this knowledge.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Which I never really had thought about before, but he has to know that to be able to give the sheriff the lead, to be able to question her effectively, to lead her to what he already has figured out. He has to help her also figure it out.
And
is there anything more exciting than watching him look at that picture and his eyes lit up and us at home going, what is he seeing?
Right.
Yeah.
What is he seeing that I'm not seeing in that picture?
And then there's also like when she's looking at it and she's figured it out, but his question is like, oh, well, is it possible a different set of guys came up in the exact same car? That's what I've been arguing. Is that possible? And then you've got the defense is wrong. And at that point, you're kind of like, oh no, like what's happening? Like, how is this falling through?
Right.
You're Ralph Macchio at that moment going like, oh, you blew it.
He's like deflated.
Or the other guy. I would, to your point, Rob, and I guess to the point you're making, Madeline, I love that too. I didn't really think about this until now, but throughout the film, Vinny is he's played like he's a little in over his head.
Yeah.
Like, he's got some spunk. He's not going to back down from the challenge. But really, she's kind of keeping him afloat.
Yeah.
Like, she's helping him with disclosure. She's helping him, along the way. And that's his moment to be like, I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got you. Like, you're gonna have a moment of triumph. I'm gonna set the table for you and go for it. And that is the falling in love. That is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
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 Well, and it's the marital moment of let me help you.
Yeah. Because
Why
she
won't
asks
you let
him
me
throughout
help
the
you?
whole film, like over and over again, like, how can I help? And he kind of breaks there towards the end, like when he's in the diner during the lunch break.
Yeah.
He's like, I wish there was a way you could help, but you can't.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really sweet to finally see them work together.
Absolutely. And I think that like another important element about this Marisa Tomei performance, and also like going back to the comedy of it, a big, I feel like the most, if you're going to call anything about this role a gag, it's the sense that, she has this expertise about, at first about leaky faucets and then about automotives that like, she's not necessarily showing on the surface level of her being, but when asked to dispense her knowledge on it, she is, it's just, to use a term I used earlier, like bang, bang, bang.
Yeah, the fact that she's able to, like when the prosecutor is doubting her, like it's just such a triumphant moment when she's able to be like, oh, the ignition timing is this, and you asked me a trick question. And he's just like, she'll do.
And also this is like, she's an expert about this, but clearly, I mean, she's an out of work hairdresser. This is not what she wanted to do.
Yeah.
She, it's just how she was brought up.
I mean, if she's this knowledgeable about cars and doesn't even work as a mechanic currently, then she must be a fabulous hairdresser.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, like, is her own hair not an indication enough of that?
Exactly.
Worth saying too that like Lisa by a long shot is the best costume character in this whole movie.
Oh yeah.
There's like all
No
these other
competition.
scenes, and because like apparel is actually for a few scenes an important theme in this movie regarding courtroom attire.
Yeah.
That, even when everyone else is looking pretty ordinary, and I think that Cousin Vinny is pretty unfairly maligned for his lack of proper court dress.
Yeah.
That, she like on like an ordinary day, she just looks stunning. She has the best fits.
Yeah, totally. But I mean, I mentioned a little bit about how Jonathan Lynn wanted to make a working class commentary about this. Like the fact that Vinny doesn't understand what's wrong with the way he's dressed. He doesn't understand like why it would be a reflection of him as an attorney, whether or not he's wearing a tie or whether his jacket is leather or cotton. because he's grown up working class. He worked as a mechanic. That's why he's able to figure out everything at the end. He worked in Lisa's father's garage. And so it gives, the movie allows him to use this background to his advantage eventually.
Yeah. And going back to your question, Madeline, about like the more salient themes, I got it too. The more salient themes that are really going on. I feel like it'll be difficult to describe this without sounding very broad, but it is, in a lot of ways, like a pretty heartwarming kind of like message of like, get to know your peers beyond the surface level. Yeah. You'll find a lot of trust in each other, and there's just like not even just trust, a lot to really like and love about these other people. And it's, whether that be just like shown in the form of Lisa's unexpected expertise, or, it's in like Cousin Vinny's moxie in spite of his lack of proper dress, or the way, the fact that the accusation that sets this film's plot in motion is proven to be wrong.
Yeah.
I think you could even take it a little step further, flip the tables, because isn't there a moment where, I'm so sorry, the non-Ralph Macchio character in
Stan.
this, Stan, thank you. He has a moment where he badmouths the Southerners.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, and
like they sleep with their cousins.
Exactly. Yeah. And he's like, well, some of you do, or something like that. But so there's a little bit of that, a little bit of fair play happening there as well.
Yeah, and even with the judge and the prosecutor, I mean, Jonathan Lynn, again on the commentary, he's like, I didn't want any villains in this movie.
Yeah,
like
I love that.
The two of them they're hard on Vinny. They are kind of antagonistic to Vinny, but they're not necessarily the antagonists of the movie. Like we get that scene with the prosecutor where he's like, well, for a long time, like I was a defense attorney and I didn't feel good about myself.
Right.
And so that's when I pivoted. And so they're not meant to be villains either. Like there is something deep to them that they are trying to make the world a better place. They just happen to be antagonistic to the current cause that we're behind.
Right.
One of the biggest heroes of this film, and this is a credit to the writing, is someone we never meet, and it's his mentor who saves him at the end.
Thank you for bringing it up.
There is something about to your argument about the the class themes in this movie. There is something about that New York attorney who gave him an olive branch and saw in him what Marisa Tomei's character sees in him. That is this sort of unspoken presence in the movie that's sort of keeping the hint of the confidence in himself there. And Ralph Macchio's character in the jail cell says it, like, don't doubt him. Everybody doubts him, but I'm telling you, he's going to be the guy to figure out how the rabbit's being pulled out of the hat. Yeah. And the foreshadowing there is so good because just trust him. You have to trust him. He's the smartest guy in the room. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we trust this sort of like third party person we keep hearing about, so that when that slip of paper comes down in Judge Chamberlain's hand outside the car, and he gestures up to be put in handcuffs,
and then he shakes the hand.
There's a hero in that movie that we never meet, which is just so much fun.
Yeah, and that's great. And like, well, you mentioned Ralph Macchio too, and it's kind of like it's clear evidence that in spite of some characters' initial suspicions, that both Vinny and Lisa have probably literally done their wax on, wax off as well.
Yeah.
Totally. Totally. And the other thing that Ralph Macchio proves to me in this movie, I love him. I think he's so talented, and I've seen him do a lot of different things, from like the How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying tour. Like he's got a musical theater life, but his performance in this movie, because the most recent thing I think a lot of us have seen him in is Cobra Kai.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It really does make a case for actors being as good as the company they're in, and actors being as good as their scene partners and their directors, because Ralph Macchio is a bit of a chameleon in terms of his abilities, to be honest. Like there are moments where I'll watch a scene in Cobra Kai and be like, God, this is so bad. and then I'll watch My Cousin Vinny and just go like, I believe every syllable out of his mouth. Again, not to quote Jerry Zaks for the 500th time tonight, but Jerry Zaks has a term where he calls it the gift of credibility. and when actors have the gift of credibility, meaning when they speak, you just buy it.
Yeah.
And he does in this movie. He has the gift of credibility. When he speaks, I believe him.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that has to do with a great director and a lot of and bouncing off of great actors. But he in particular in this movie, I watch him and go like, oh, I think acting can a lot of time be the product of your surroundings as to the result of your performance a lot of times.
Totally.
Love that.
So
Yeah.
let's talk a little more about Marisa Tomei. She's our winner
Oh my
here.
Yeah.
And as you said, she's pretty young and early on in her career during this win.
Yeah, I think that like she at the time of this movie's release and then her win, she's like the age I am now, 28.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's like all of these supporting performances we're discussing tonight come at interesting places in the actors' careers because like Kevin Kline's is kind of like, you know, he's an established actor in general, but he's not as established as a film actor. So it's like he's seasoned in his general career, but as a film actor, it's kind of a breakout.
Yeah.
For Jack Palance, it's very much like a culminating award that, you know, he's worked for years to get this and he's finally getting a well-deserved award. And for the Marisa Tomei's win, I mean, this is like a breakout in every sense of the word.
Yeah.
That like, you know, this is like her first big film role and she's winning an Oscar for it.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, the only, I'm sure there are more, but the only analogous win that I can think of like that at the moment is Lupita Nyong'o in 12 Years a Slave, where that was like,
Totally.
I think that was maybe her first film role. And then right out of the gate, she gets an Oscar. I watched the footage of the ceremony when she won, and she's up against mostly these actors who are all much older than her.
Yeah, and who are mostly British.
Who are British too, which Jack Palance, who was presenting the award, comments on. This is, you know, he jokes that it's like a first for this category that everyone is, you know, from somewhere foreign. 4 are British and 1's from Brooklyn. But yeah, but so he, you know, he jokes about that, but you can see like she's up against these heavyweights. And the moment that she wins, she's like very earnestly surprised, and there's a huge cheer from the crowd. And that there's a little sense when she's on the stage giving her speech, she's like, "Oh my god, I can't believe it!"
Yeah.
So it's
very
really
earnest. Yeah.
Like
yeah.
you know, 30 something years later, it's still like very heartwarming to see. And I think that this has to be like one of the most notable breakout performances in film. Period.
I totally agree. But then there's this weird rumor. Do you guys know about this?
Yeah.
There's this weird rumor that she wasn't the rightful winner and that Jack Palance like either mistakenly read her name off the teleprompter or just like went off the cuff and just picked somebody himself.
This is like La La Land Moonlight?
That is what the rumor was.
But it's even more tabloid than that, because I think this was a concoction of a critic at that time.
Perhaps, yeah.
Yeah, and that it's, you know, like some critic put that out into the ether, and Marisa Tomei said that she found it deeply hurtful.
Yeah, as she should, because this is an excellent performance. And I don't think I've actually seen any of the movies whose performers she would have been up against. And maybe, I'm sure a lot of them also would have been rightful winners, but I think she is just so lights out in this. She's fantastic. Yeah. So it pisses me off a little bit, but it's also, I think, so interesting to look back on that this was a rumor that like people really rolled with for a while.
I think it speaks a little bit to why this whole conversation got started. Is this an Oscar quote worthy performance? Like, you know, I think that a critic or someone who would start a rumor like that would only do that if they felt like there was something that was undeserving about this. Yeah. And it's hard to watch this performance and be like, oh, that wasn't very good. Because it's so winning.
It's so good.
It's so fun.
Because we've mentioned it a few times, I figured I'd look it up. So she was up against Judy Davis for Husbands and Wives, Joan Plowright for Enchanted April, Vanessa Redgrave for Howard's End, who was like, that was the rumor of like who was supposed to win, and then Miranda Richardson for Damage.
Yeah, and another thing relating to all of this about the Oscars is that, like, when you see someone like Jack Palance gets an award for a culminating performance of his career, I feel like the Academy can be much better about awarding legacy performances than about catching the actors right in the sweet spot. So that's part of the reason why I think that Marisa Tomei's win for My Cousin Vinny is a very deserved win. They like sometimes, what that translates to is that they missed the chance when an actor is young to give them an award that they really deserve. Like when we did our LA Confidential episode a month ago, Matt Friedman was talking about that too, with how the Academy in 1998, they overlooked Julianne Moore and Minnie Driver in favor of Kim Basinger for the supporting actress category. And, sometimes you do see some very young people winning in their prime, with maybe like more recently like Jennifer Lawrence or Brie Larson, people like that. And honestly, my personal favorite to win Best Actress this year is someone like that too, who also happens to be playing a very brash New Yorker, which is Mikey Madison in Honora.
Yeah, excellent performance. And I think very inspired by Marisa Tomei, I would say.
Oh, totally. Yeah, it's like, I mean, even before I saw My Cousin Vinny, based on all the stuff I had heard about this role, I sensed like there has to be some common DNA here, even though Honora is not Italian.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Do we have any little details or any small points?
I just wanted to, somebody just mentioned Matt Friedman, who was on our LA Confidential episode. Matt is an attorney. Yeah. And he, I think, mentioned to us off mic how accurate My Cousin Vinny is. And how it really is lauded, I think, by the legal community as having an incredibly accurate trial. And my brother is also an attorney. He's a public defender. So I texted him yesterday and I was like, hey, we're covering My Cousin Vinny on the pod. I keep hearing how it's praised for the accuracy of the trial. What do you think? And he said, yes, it's pretty accurate. In fact, the scenes in which Vinny cross-examines the witnesses are taught in law school. It's textbook cross-examination.
Rob's pumping his fist.
Oh, yes, I am.
The way he controls the witnesses is very well done. I'm convinced that whoever wrote those scenes had courtroom experience. Jonathan Lynn, who directed this, did go to law school himself. And he said, as silly as it may sound, My Cousin Vinny is probably the most accurate law movie ever made.
Wow.
Come on.
I'll mention one other thing too. So I have a guitar student named Samantha, who's also an attorney. I asked her about this last week because I was like, we're going to talk about this. And she said something very similar. And the other thing she told me that I really that really stood out for me was she was like, a lot of times when you go to law school, what you really do is you learn how to learn. And that's something that you see in this movie played out. And she said that was very accurate, which is that he comes into this environment and suddenly has to understand all the legal precedent that came before. He has to understand what it's like where he's at right now. And she's like, that is so much of being a lawyer, is just getting prepared for whatever you are being asked to try or defend or prosecute. And so shout out to Samantha. Thank you for that. That's really cool. But another nod to the legal accuracy of this film.
Yeah, and I mean, like cementing that legal accuracy. I mean, I think we've alluded to it so far, but Marisa Tomei is lights out in this movie, but I got to give a lot of credit to Joe Pesci too. I think this is a great performance on his part, especially because this is in the wake of his win for Best Supporting Actor.
The Pesci-sons.
Yes.
Love
for
that.
For Goodfellas, where he plays a total psychopath. But, it's just seeing him 2 years later. I bet for audiences, seeing him as a much more likable character was very refreshing.
Can I say, you also listen to this commentary, right?
About half of it.
Okay, so they may have gotten this after you cut it off. Joe Pesci wins his Goodfellas Oscars during the production of this film. So the scene where he spends the night in jail and finally gets a good night's sleep, and it pans over to him, and he's all cuddled up in the bed in the cell or whatever. They did a different take of that where he is clutching his Oscar.
No way.
And they submitted that as the dailies.
Oh, wow.
That's so good.
And I really wish I didn't try to find it. They just mentioned it on the commentary. I doubt it's out there, but I hope it is somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's great.
That is phenomenal.
I want to call back to one little thing, which is I remember hearing about the making of City Slickers, how Daniel Stern was making that movie when Home Alone came out.
Wow.
And they were filming, and Billy Crystal kept being like, dude, your movie just is number one
every week
after week after week. What's going on? And I think he had a similar moment where he's like, I think my career is never going to be the same.
Yeah.
After that, while he was in the middle of making that film. So very cool.
Wow. Yeah, and then it's like Joe Pesci. You see him play a psychopath in Goodfellas, and then in Home Alone, you see him play a much more amusing bandit. Speaking of comic performances too, I mean, he does a great slapstick role there.
Totally.
And then you see him do something more in between in My Cousin Vinny. And I think, it's especially because he's someone who he's in some great movies, but he's not in very many movies.
Yeah.
Like he's pretty selective about when he acts, especially today. It's such a great showcase of his range. Shifting gears slightly though, this is a brief thing, but I found the name of the movie, the John Landis movie that Marisa Tomei was in that Jonathan Lynn decided to cast her on, and it was very appropriately titled Oscar.
Ah.
Yeah, foretelling for her
Very cool.
by about 1 year.
How about you, Rob? Is there any little
Amazing.
detail or moment that sticks out with you?
Joe Pesci's work in it, the thing I think that blows my mind is how we as an audience doubt him the same way that everyone else does.
Mm-hmm.
And he repeatedly catches things that we don't catch. What I love about this movie that I hate about other movies is when there were pieces of evidence that come into play that we couldn't have figured out.
Yeah.
Like when I watch a movie and they go like, "Oh, this is what secretly happened." Dun dun dun.
The tire
and you go like,
tracks.
"Well, there was." Yeah, and you go like, "Well, there's no way I as an audience member could have figured that out." So fine. In My Cousin Vinny, everything that's revealed in court is there for us to figure out.
Yeah.
If we know how long it takes to cook a grit, we hear the inconsistency.
Yeah.
If we are there looking through the bushes at his point of view, we go, "Oh, he can't have seen them as clearly as he claims to." So when he calls them to the stand and pokes holes in their testimonies, those holes were there for us to catch,
Yeah.
but most of us don't on our first viewing. So he gets to be smarter than us legitimately,
Oh yeah.
as opposed to us being revealed information that we couldn't have possibly been on to.
Yeah.
And I love that the crumbs are there for us to miss so we can celebrate him catching them when we don't.
a
Yeah,
great point.
we're playing catch up with him in
Yes.
some ways, and that's great.
He's smarter than us.
Yeah.
Which is what's great. It's the classic underdog.
I love that. What do you think? It covered it all?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you for talking about this movie with me, guys, because I love this one so much. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm from the South. I'm from North Carolina. So this also feels very familiar to me. I still say no self-respecting Southerner uses instant grits. I say that occasionally. I love grits. My dad who's been on the podcast, hi Dad, he says that grits are a salt and butter delivery system.
Yeah, that's correct.
I think it's true.
That is correct.
I
also think My Cousin Vinny might be an unconventional prequel to The Munsters.
Yeah.
Okay.
That Judge
Yeah,
Chamberlain,
Jonathan
upon
Lynn-
his untimely death, his face is used.
Totally. And the on the commentary, Jonathan Lynn said that he was he's British, he's English, so he did not know the Munsters at all. So people kept being like, "You cast Mr. Munster as the judge."
That's
Yeah, that's interesting too. That it's even though all the content of the movie is very much American, that like A Fish Called Wanda, you have an English person directing the movie, so there's that culture crossover too. I've heard it come up before that sometimes people, certain directors, have a better view on a culture that they are not from when they're directing a movie about it.
Yeah,
that's certainly true in My Cousin Vinny, given it's some people think it's the most accurate portrayal of legal proceedings set to film.
Yeah, that's so cool. Real quick, I guess to just wrap this up, one thing that came to my mind was is there a comedic performance that we feel should have won an Oscar or that maybe wasn't even recognized? I'll pose that to everybody first.
Ooh.
I've got one that I'm ready to do right now.
Go for it.
So, all of these movies that we're talking about come from, some years that are very close together, but I'm going to mention one that comes from much earlier in time, approximately 25 to 30 years before this range of movies that we're discussing now. And it's a type of comic performance that I think when you look at traditional comedy is a pretty common type of thing, when you have a really competent performer where
I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, well, they will appear as more than one character in the film.
Yep.
And on that note, I think one of the most criminally overlooked by the Oscars comic performances in history is Peter Sellers in Dr. Strangelove.
Yeah.
Because, I think that I would argue that maybe only one of the three characters he plays is even comic. Colonel Mandrake and the president in that movie are, he is doing, apropos of your comment earlier, Rob, he's playing the truth with those characters.
Oh yeah.
And like the whole movie is very funny, but I think all the characters take themselves very seriously. And it's only, the titular character of Dr. Strangelove that really is, funny in the slapstick way, maybe in like the Chaplin type of way.
Very cool. I'm going to shout out one that I think is right up there with the best comedic performances I've ever seen. I think you're going to agree with me on this one, Julian. And that is John Goodman in The Big Lebowski.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh,
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, that performance to me is a true staggering work of genius.
Yeah.
I'm just going to leave it there. If you haven't seen The Big Lebowski, you got to see it. But every time I see that movie, that performance gets more and more funny.
Yeah.
I see more layers to the onion. I freaking love that performance. So,
Oh, yeah.
I think you could pick pretty much any Coen Brothers movie and pick several people who would be deserving of Oscar nominations or wins. I think you could pick multiple people from The Big Lebowski.
Yeah.
I love Buscemi in that.
Yeah, and in Fargo.
And in Fargo, you could, Buscemi's great in Fargo.
he's
You could
quite
pick
good.
a lot of people in Fargo for that as well. Yeah, I think that you could pretty much pick any Coen Brothers movie for an answer for this.
Yeah. And then, and like, thinking of The Big Lebowski, I mean, it's, like not only is that role very funny, but there's a humanity to it too. And honestly, in the last 10 years, I have to say that Walter Sobchak's repeated utterance of the line, "Shut the fuck up, Donnie," has felt
Totally.
very sadly relevant
For
in the present
sure.
culture.
Oh,
There's someone high up in the world who I really wish would listen to that statement.
Yes, we get what you're putting down.
Also, just have to shout out, don't roll on Shomer fucking Shabbos.
Yes, exactly. Rob, I don't know if you have anything on that.
There's a couple. Bill Murray in Groundhog Day,
Sure.
I think is like a timeless performance. It's also a like Ebenezer Scrooge level transformation in a movie.
Yeah.
Like starts the movie as one person and ends the movie as another person, which he really did have like a little stint there between like Scrooge and Groundhog Day, where he was playing people who go through massive transformations. And that movie, when I teach, I'll often use that movie as a perfect example of the actually to come full circle in the evening, because I love how long it takes him to believe that that's actually happening.
Yeah.
That it feels like how long it would take me to accept that reality. One of the things I hate are movies like, in Independence Day, where they're like, aliens are landing, and they're like, great, what's the plan? Before anyone goes like, wait, what? Like, if there's going to be extraordinary circumstance, I need someone to respond to it with a worthy level of reality. And Groundhog Day to me is a masterclass in a person with their feet on the ground being confronted with extraordinary circumstance, and the comedy being all born out of that ridiculousness. So I think he was overlooked there. Madeline Kahn in a lot of her things, I think she should be nominated in 80% of the movies she made.
Totally.
I was going to say, big Muppets fan. Muppets Take Manhattan. She's in that one, isn't she?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
Just so good. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
Michael Keaton in Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
That was
That's a good
that
one.
was my number 2.
If we're gonna talk about Kevin Kline getting a nomination for Audacity, that performance, especially when you look at what's on the page, like 98% of the success of that character came from Michael Keaton's brain.
Yeah.
Like he read a script that did not have an outline for the behavior of this character and came up with that, which is such a singular interpretation of a character since, too. Like, there was never anything like it before and never anything like it since. And for sheer bravery alone, I think that deserves one.
Yeah. And the last one, you said Madeline Kahn, which I totally agree with. And that made me think of another one of my all-time favorite movies, which is What's Up, Doc? And I think Barbra Streisand is so funny in that if Barbra Streisand could not sing, I think that based off of her performance in What's Up, Doc, she could have had a career purely as a comedic actor. She
Totally.
is so good in that.
That's another movie I've got to see.
You guys
Yeah,
have got to watch
I
it.
know.
It's excellent.
In general, there's a big Barbara Streisand-shaped hole in my watching experience. Both movies she's directed and been in, honestly.
Yeah.
Cool. Well,
There's one more glaring one for me, and it's not usually considered a comedy. It's more of a fantasy, but his performance is certainly comedic. Dustin Hoffman in Hook
Yeah.
is a pretty timelessly successful comedic performance for me, and bold in its bravery, and unlike anything we had seen him do before or since. That one's pretty glaring for me too.
love that. Cool.
Yeah, I still need to see Hook.
Cool.
Bring me back on when you watch it.
Absolutely.
Oh, gladly, yeah.
We will hold you to that for sure. All right, guys. Well, let's round out this evening with a little unlikely shared universe. Do you guys mind if I get started with this
Do
one?
it.
Go for it.
All right, cool. So the last time we see Otto, he's just been crushed by a road roller and subsequently blown off the wing of a jet airliner taking off.
You're talking about A Fish Called Wanda.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes. Not a man
Called
na-
Otto.
Called Otto,
Yeah.
yes. By most accounts, he is dead as a doorknob. But behind all of Otto's silliness, there is a man of surprising physical strength. And he fully recovers from all of these physical ailments after a long stint in a limey hospital.
Mhm.
He returns to the United States with very little money, humbled, and decides, as a sociopath might, to reinvent himself, only this time to make a more modest living in the Pacific Northwest. His command of Italian accents, particularly his quick recall of Italian foods and ingredients, leads him to open a small Italian restaurant. He ends up paring down the menu until it's just pizza, and it's here that he becomes a quite successful small business owner, ingratiating himself in the community as Joey Bacca, a Italian presenting man in Tacoma, Washington. He marries a God-fearing woman named Rosalie, but pretty soon that libido of his begins to act up again, and he begins to have affairs with several women in the area. When Rosalie finds out, she is mad as hell and decides to hire some hitmen to off Joey. But as we've seen when he was Otto, Joey is rather resilient and becomes quite the difficult target for these killers for hire. Do we know what movie this is?
I do not.
I don't think so either.
Rob, are you familiar with this?
No.
It's okay. This is a movie called I Love You to Death.
I've heard of this.
Yes,
Yeah.
which came out a couple of years after Fish Called Wanda. I have to believe that there was a little bit of influence on this character, but this is often Kevin Kline collaborated with Lawrence Kasdan. He also famous for The Big Chill. And it's like an ensemble cast movie. I gotta say, so I said I really loved Fish Called Wanda as a teenager. I worked at a mom and pop video store for 2.5, 3 years. And I was like, I gotta take this home. It's Kevin Kline. I didn't really like it that much, gotta admit. He's a little bit more of a caricature in this movie, but does it make a good unlikely shared universe? I say hell yeah.
Very nice.
Nice. Well, mine is also on A Fish Called Wanda, so may I continue this?
Let's do it.
Totally.
All right, but about a different character. So, in A Fish Called Wanda, it's been mentioned that numerous characters get kicks out of speaking in foreign languages, albeit to what John Cleese might call the menu level of sophistication. But one of those languages spoken is Russian, and one Russian word uttered is Molotov. And perhaps, I remember it being Wanda herself who utters this. Perhaps this is a somewhat intentional reference to Ken's biological father, former Soviet premier Vyacheslav Molotov. Now, Ken would have been born in the late 1940s or early 50s in Russia as the illegitimate offspring from an extramarital affair of Molotov, at the time himself in a career downturn amidst his declining popularity post-World War II. However, Molotov would get a new hop in his step when the Soviet Union found itself without a leader in 1953, and an elaborate scuffle to fill the gap emerged in which the skeevy politician Lavrentiy Beria showed a ferocious drive for power. Molotov would thus find himself banded with a cadre of Soviet politicians and military leaders banding together to prevent Beria from seizing the reins of power in order to install Nikita Khrushchev in his place. However, a few years later, when Khrushchev himself would begin a policy of de-Stalinization, Molotov again found himself in the position of attempting a coup that sadly would not work this time. Ahead of being exiled to Mongolia, he would cut his losses by instructing his mistress and her young son to flee the country and escape any potential consequences of his downfall. Now, his mistress and her young son then resolved to flee to England, assume anglicized names. The son assumes the name Ken Pyle, and he would then grow up amongst some seedy characters and find relative stability as the accomplice of jewel thief George Thomason, while in private tending to a growing collection of fish and engaging victoriously in a coup of his own against a loose cannon double-crosser of his boss named Otto West by way of a steamroller. So these criminal instincts that he has are part of his ancestry, its progeny, and thus would conclude a series of events with many roots, but primarily set in motion by the death of Stalin.
The death of Stalin. Okay.
Very nice.
There we go. Very good.
Well played.
Thank you.
That one was great.
Yes, because Michael Palin plays Vyacheslav Molotov in that film. Yeah, I think that lines up pretty well.
I think so too. I think there's a way we can spin that for
Totally.
sure.
I also did A Fish Called Wanda.
Oh.
So that's fun.
Perfect.
So I would like to pitch an alternate history or an alternate future, I guess, for Otto.
Okay.
So we actually do get our little in credit card on Otto. He does survive being, crushed into cement and blown off a plane because he goes on to be the Minister of Justice for South Africa, which does not sound like a particularly sustainable position over time, but probably a lucrative one. So he likely makes a lot of money in this time and, hides it away, as he has perhaps learned to do. But he, has to escape South Africa a few years later for reasons. So he moves back to the U.S. and decides to lay down roots in a coastal town in New Jersey with a boatload of money. He even invests in some local real estate and builds an amusement park on the pier, further adding to his wealth. And one minor property of his is rented by a young couple looking to open a fast food restaurant. So over many years, this couple manages to just barely keep their restaurant afloat while raising their 3 children. Otto, now going by his real name of Calvin Fischoeder, has a soft spot for this young family and regularly allows them to be a few days late on their rent or pay in unconventional ways, like pretending to be his fake family to make an ex-girlfriend jealous. Oh, Otto. And so this family continues to keep their restaurant just barely afloat, serving Otto, Calvin Fischoeder, a burger of the day whenever he desires.
Yeah, served by someone named Bob.
Perhaps.
that is phenomenal.
Thank you.
Yeah. There you go again with the intermedium Unlikely Shared Universe.
I'm the only one that ever connects real life to animation in our Unlikely Shared Universe. I figured I'd keep it going.
Please do. Yeah.
So this is Bob's Burgers. Yes. He's the landlord in that.
Phenomenal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
After that game, I'm mad that we're not closer friends.
Aw.
All of us.
Well, you have to come back.
Yeah, that's
That was some deep dive nerddom, and I'm so proud of y'all. That's
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate that.
Now we have to find a place to talk about Hook.
Yeah, totally.
Oh my god!
I think so.
And I'm sitting here trying to tie. Is there a way for Daniel Stern's Phil? What was Phil's new life? And with their shared love of baseball, I'm wondering if he becomes the character we love in Rookie of the Year.
Rookie of the Year is a formative, what Hook might be for you. Rookie of the Year.
Well, what's his first name? Could his name be Phil?
Maybe.
Yeah.
This is a good point. I would also say too that I think because of the success of Home Alone and City Slickers, that was the juice that allowed Daniel Stern to direct Rookie of the Year. Yeah. That was a personal project for him. That's so cool. Rob, I just got to say, man, it is such a joy and a pleasure to have you join us. Thank you so much. I feel like you've just been so generous with your time And
oh my gosh, this is heaven to me. Are you kidding?
well, like I said, we'll find a way to bring you back for Hook.
Yeah,
I'm
we
sure.
loved having
Yeah.
you. Thank you so much.
Yes, thanks for being here.
Where can people
joy.
find you?
They can find me on Instagram at McClure Rob. You can find me at McClure Rob or at Rob McClure on Twitter, or X or whatever the hell it is now. Who knows? What it will be tomorrow?
Right,
Who knows?
yeah.
And I also I have a character that I'm doing on Elspeth on CBS. If you checked out that show, you might be able to catch me there. And then we'll see what's next in the Broadway theater game. I'm actually writing something.
Ooh,
that I just finished a draft of. That's super, super exciting. If you ever cover this movie that I'm adapting for the stage, I would love to come back.
absolutely.
And talk about it.
Oh,
Very cool.
Wow. Well, best of luck with that.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah.
Cool. And again, thank you so much. This is just a real treat.
Totally.
What are we doing next? Because this is concluding our current cycle of movies. We were talking about films that were featuring best supporting acting performances, but we're shifting gears now. We're doing something else.
Yes. And so it's very fitting that we ended this cycle with two movies about New Yorkers being taken to locales that they're not familiar with, because we're going to be discussing a bunch of movies about a locale that they are familiar with. Our upcoming cycle is all going to be New York movies, and that's a great big category. There are many great things to choose from, but we're selecting a few that we are really interested in talking about.
Yes. And so first up for our Viewunanimous, which is a movie all three of us have seen before, we are going to be discussing Frances Ha from 2012, directed by Noah Baumbach and written by him and Greta Gerwig, also starring her.
Yeah. That's a movie I've seen several times. I think it's fascinating. It's a great modern take. I use that word modern very intentionally if you've seen the movie. On the 20-something growing up or finding their way in New York, which as a 20-something finding his way in New York, I can very much relate to. I'm really excited.
Totally.
Same here. Well, in addition to this podcast, you can still find us on TikTok and on Instagram at Sleepless Cinematic Pod. You can also contact us via email. We would love to hear from you. You can write to us at sleeplesscinematicpod@gmail.com. And I want to take a quick second to shout out somebody who wrote to us. His name is Chris Hather, and he is from Bristol. He's from the UK. And he sent us a really fun email that just was a picture of some liner notes, I think, of a DVD that he had for a film that we had a chance to discuss a couple months back. That is Don't Look Back, the Bob Dylan documentary. If anybody is listening to this right now and you're like, oh, Complete Unknown, I'd love to see more Bob Dylan in movies and maybe hear people talk about them, check out our episode on Don't Look Back. But Chris, thank you so much for writing us. It was so cool to hear from you. So thanks.
Totally. Yeah. I think that having watched Don't Look Back recently gave me more appreciation when watching A Complete Unknown in the theater. So highly recommend.
I agree with that too.
Yeah. I'm not on Letterboxd. You guys are.
Yes. You can follow me, Madeline, at Patroness of Cats.
And you can follow me, Julian, at Julian_Barthold. If you are listening to us for the first time, thank you for finding us. If this is the third or fourth or 40th time you've listened to us, thank you for sticking with us. If you're not already following us, please follow us. We have really grown to love doing this, and it means the world to have our budding listenership grow.
And if you haven't already, we'd ask you, return listener, to please write a positive review and rate us on your podcast platform of choice. This is one of the best ways for new listeners to find us and help our podcast take its next steps. You can also keep it grassroots and tell a friend to tell a friend about the Sleepless Cinematic podcast. That helps too. And I have to say, I wrote this down. I didn't have time to make this joke. We discussed 3 fish out of water movies tonight. 1 fish goes from New York to Alabama. 1 fish goes from New York to Colorado. And the 3rd fish goes from a tank into a man's mouth.
Very well said.
Well played.
And now our biological clocks are ticking. Good night, everybody.